You ever look at a project so chaotic, so off the rails, that the only logical explanation is somebody planned it that way?
Obviously the first step of a larger scheme, something that we would stop.
The attacks were strategically brilliant.
More than that, they were specifically targeted at our physical and psychological weaknesses.
Obviously by someone who knows us very well.
The plans were mine.
Yours?
Say what now?
Today we're diving into a masterclass in controlled chaos. That's right, the Joker, the purple-suited project anarchist of the Dark Knight that had a Gantt chart of mayhem and every milestone hit like a brick through a boardroom window. But here's the real twist. Was his chaos actually leadership? Was Batman a better PM or just a better firefighter? And when does Harvey Dent stop being the White Knight and start being your most unpredictable team member?
What about his face?
That's a different matter.
We're breaking out the criminal dry erase board with my brothers in arms, Todd Roth, Tom DeVeronica, and Seth Caples, three guys who know leadership under fire. And yes, this week's book is The Art of War. Because if Joker taught us anything, it's that every villain thinks they're the strategist. So grab your project brief, throw it in the shredder, and let's learn how to lead like a lunatic. Or better yet, survive working under one. I'm Mark Caples. This is the Hard Knock University, where chaos isn't the enemy, it's the curriculum.
I hope you're watching Batman. This one's for you.
Oh, hi, Mark. So why specifically project management and leadership?
Because that's what the book is about.
Why is the book about that?
It's a made-up tale.
The 7 sacred lessons from the School of Hard Knocks.
This one was invented by a writer.
I learned the hard way. Actually, it was a good learning experience.
It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
It's the Hard Knock University podcast, where real talk meets real lessons, and we all graduate with honors in the School of Life.
Wretched, isn't it?
Calling all musicians and industry pros. Do you want to turn your hard knocks into breakthroughs? Well, season 2 of the Hard Knock University podcast is proud to be sponsored by SMG Academy, the ultimate music industry mentorship platform founded by 20-year veteran Mark Sebi. SMG Academy delivers real-world training from touring strategies to publishing secrets straight from the trenches of the Texas music scene. Whether you're an artist, a manager, a songwriter, it doesn't matter. SMG's courses and community will fast-track your success. Are you ready to level up? Visit smgacademy.online and use code HKU2025 for 15% off of your enrollment. SMG Academy, where hustle meets harmony. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hard Knock University podcast, where we don't just survive chaos, we study it, we sip whiskey with it, and sometimes invite it to guest host. Last week, we went full Disney dark and broke down Maleficent, the horned queen of boundary setting and misunderstood stakeholder management. We asked whether villainy is just leadership that got bad press and whether fire breathing is a valid conflict resolution strategy. Spoiler, sometimes, yeah.
Oh, come on, that's funny.
But today, we're sliding down the greasy pole of Gotham chaos, dissecting the mind of a man who burns money for fun, the Joker. We're also going to shine the spotlight on Batman's control freak spreadsheet brain and Harvey Dent's fall from White Knight office hero to rogue freelancer with a coin-based decision matrix.
That's my cue.
But first, my week. So by the time this episode airs, I will have celebrated 15 years of marriage to my amazing wife, Jen. 15 years. That's a milestone, y'all. In project management terms, that's a multi-phase legacy contract with ongoing change orders, a rotating scope, and a junior stakeholder who never approves anything on time. We've grown through chaos, comfort, and a lot of conversations that started with, what the hell did the dog eat this time? Jen, if you're listening, you're the real project lead. I just take the notes and order Uber Eats. And let's be honest, if marriage is a job, then I've definitely been promoted way above my skill level. Thanks for not firing me, Jen.
On vengeance.
All right, vengeance.
You're fucking fired. What? No, I'm your replacement.
No, you're not. I'm gonna have to cite the case of ain't broke, V don't fix.
Now, shifting gears. Lately, I've been pouring more energy into one of my biggest passions, Como Conservation, our local charity fighting to protect water, wildlife, and open spaces in Como County. We're hard at it planning the Keep It Country Music Jam in late October of this year, and I'm helping launch a brand new event, the first annual Rain Dance at Laird's Hideaway in Canyon Lake on. This one is brought to you by Leadership Knocks. So look for more on both of these events in the coming weeks ahead, right here on the Hard Knock University podcast and anywhere where Leadership Knocks has content. We're talking cold beer, hot music, and a damn good cause. Honestly, it's nice to manage a festival instead of a project where, if something blows up, it's just like a speaker and not an entire budget or something. It's a nice reprieve. But with all these side quests ramping up, I've got some news. It looks like we're going to have to shift this podcast to a bi-weekly release schedule. Now, don't panic, all you loyal hard knockers. That just means more time for quality and more editing and more polish, more sound bites that make you laugh out loud in the traffic. If you've been here since season 1, you already know the glow up is real. I've been learning some tough #hardknock lessons about audio production, storytelling, and yes, how not to accidentally delete an entire episode at 2 a.m. Now imagine the quality when I have 2 weeks to mess it up before fixing it. So quick recap, 15 years of marriage with no layoffs, throwing a Texas-style benefit concert like a PM with a banjo, and moving to a bi-weekly setup, but upgrading every pixel and every punchline, I promise. And now, before we dive into the Joker's org chart of destruction, let's tease what's coming. Our book of the week is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, because if you're gonna do battle with clowns, you better know your tactics. And we've got a brand new knockback so you can laugh, cringe, and maybe learn a thing or two. All right, let's gear up for the case study breakdown with our guests, Todd Roth, Tom DeVeronica, and Seth Caples, because chaos is only fun after you learn how to manage it. Let's get to work. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hard Knock University podcast. I'm Mark Caples.
I'm Seth Caples.
Guys.
I'm Todd Roth.
Tom DeVeronica.
Todd's a friend of the podcast. He's been around here before, so longtime listeners know Todd. He's a musician and luthier out of Bastrop, Texas, and one of my good friends. Todd's bringing along one of his good friends from way back. Tom, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Fortunate or unfortunate enough to meet Todd back when we were freshmen in high school, I think. Started hanging out, and we both had this genius idea to go into the Army, so we did. And been friends ever since throughout the country. Myself, I bounced around for a while, ended up in the electrical industry doing project management. Been doing it for about 20 plus years.
See, I told you he was the right guy to call.
Yeah. And so what are you doing these days?
So I'm working for an electrical contractor right now in out of Mesa, Arizona. We got a big job going on, taking care of a large client, just getting things, just managing the electrical piece of it.
So do you generally just manage one real big project at a time, or are you doing multiple?
So the company I'm with now, I'm new to, and God, I got nothing but good things to say about them. I'd rather not say the name because I don't know if I'm allowed to. But they're really well structured. They will not let, as you know, Mark, and anybody who's been a project manager, it's very, very easy to get overwhelmed and just buried, right? There's been times in my career where you go to a job walk and you come back and you've literally got 200 emails in the short time you've been gone. The company I'm with now is very forward thinking as far as not letting anybody get buried, because the problem being is that if you're buried, you're not managing your projects. So they'll have different PMs manage different aspects of the project, different sections, different sections of the building or different pieces of work, right? You're doing feeders and gear, you're doing branch and lighting, you're doing this, you're doing that, so that, and ultimately, the communication throughout the team is amazing. It's just a really different experience for me, very positive one. They're just a great company. So
that's great, man. A good company culture is key, and that's great that y'all have that, man. Real glad for you. Let's kind of get started. We have a long night ahead of us because it's a long movie. The idea today is that we are gonna go through The Dark Knight from 2008. We're gonna discuss the project management and leadership styles of the Joker, the Batman, and we're gonna get into Harvey Dent and even kind of the police. The Gotham City Police Department, has their own little organization, their own project that they're trying to run, as inefficient as they may be. I have a ton of notes. I've been super preparing for this. I created a business plan for Joker's chaos method of bringing down the government. Yeah. And Batman's Dark Knight Incorporated and Harvey's White Knight Incorporated and all that. So we have a lot to go through. First, let's talk a little bit about our introduction to the movie. When this movie came out,
Mark, before we get into that, sorry to interrupt. Before everybody throws out the ogre nerd comment, understand that yes, Todd and I are closet nerds. So I just want to put that on the table. And the other lead into this for preparation, I was actually looking at it the other day. What says better meeting prep than the Joker going to a meeting, completely lining his coat with grenades, all completely linked together?
I've been to 4 meetings where I had to do that. 4.
Yeah. And his
dragging a rat trap behind
his deadpan. Here, take my card and call me whenever y'all want to talk about this like adults. And his card is the Joker card.
Well, and you think about it, so not to get sued or anything, but all of his grenades were linked together. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about our introductions to the movie. This movie came out in 2008. 2008 was the first year of the Obama administration. I was 4 years out of high school.
Way to go, Mark. Just tee it up, make us feel old.
Yeah.
Man. Tom and I have been friends before there was gray in the beards, and now you're like 2008. And Tom and I are like, well, I'd been into my 3rd career by 2008, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's fair. But I remember at the time, at first, when everybody was like, oh, Heath Ledger's going to be the next Joker, we're like, the Brokeback Mountain guy, Yep. And then he died, and we were all like, all right, well, let's give him a chance. And we all fell in love with it. It's hands down regarded as the best Joker ever. And it is actually number 3 on IMDb's top movies right now.
Is there anyone that says somebody's done Joker better?
Cesar Romero.
Oh, I'm sure there's somebody.
No. We were talking about that before you got on. Cesar Romero is, I'll take Nicholson over Romero any day.
Same.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, yes.
I love Nicholson's Joker. I love it.
And there are some callbacks to Nicholson's Joker that we'll get to when we get to them.
Yeah.
Seth, what's your introduction to the movie?
2008. I was 2 years out of high school, so I was partying and having fun. I was excited for it, and it came. So I feel like all of the DC and Marvel comic book movies are coming out at the perfect time for people like me and you, because we literally grew up reading those comic books.
Oh yeah.
So now we get to see the movies as adults. It's just
and we grew up on the Tim Burton trilogy.
Well, I think Tom and I have actually had this conversation before that you couldn't have Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight without the Tim Burton movies, because to take it from the Adam West, Cesar Romero TV shows, you can't just go from that to the Dark Knight. There's just there's no bridge there. But to color that through Tim Burton's lens, now you have a mythology that you can kind of twist and move and shape. And if you're a fan of the comics, you know that the comics have also taken that very, very same track, from the pang, pow, karang to to what we have now.
Burton didn't make it like a comic book movie so much as he just made it a Tim Burton movie that just happened to have Batman in it, and it's exactly what it needed, man. The tone was perfect. Michael Keaton is one of the best actors in the world, and was, still to me is, probably the best Batman.
He's still our Batman.
Yeah, Michael Keaton is my Batman.
He's our Batman.
Again, this is a conversation that Tommy and I have had. It's like, it's like,
checks out.
okay, well, Michael Keaton was the best Batman and Bruce Wayne. And then you take the other guys that have played those characters, you're like, well, he was a good Bruce Wayne, but he's a shit Batman. Or he's a good Batman, but they gave him fucking nipples. So it's like, what do you prefer to be? So, I think that Michael Keaton definitely I think he bridged both characters the best out of all the guys that have played that particular character. So
sure, yeah.
And
well, tell us a little bit about y'all's introduction to the 2008 Dark Knight.
Tom, you go first.
Yeah, so you guys are obviously neglecting the really dark side of the Dark Knight, because all I was thinking was after Clooney and Kilmer, I'm like, God, please don't screw this up again.
Yeah, sure. Of course, he had already had Batman Begins. And that was our first taste of Christopher Nolan.
When I first heard Christian Bale, was doing it, that was the thing, and I was like, oh God, Christian. And Bale was, the American Psycho is going to be Batman. This is insane, right?
I remember them being like, I remember them saying, "Oh, well, this is the first Batman that the actor is the same height as the comic book accurate Batman." And I'm like, okay, I guess that justifies it.
Yeah, that's it. We can get a tall guy. But and obviously Batman Begins did not disappoint. It framed it up really well, and then it really got a little bit more dark. So after the first one, the second one, I was, by the way, many years out of high school. Thanks again, Mark.
Fool.
Yeah, many years out of high school.
We're talking those reunions that you're like, we should probably go to this one, but not go. Yeah,
sure. I have a problem with Batman Begins, and it's I was tired at that point of seeing Batman's parents die. Like we've seen it. We've seen his the beginning,
it's kind of part of the legend, right? That's what gets him, because here's the thing, if you remember, out of all of Batman doesn't have any superpowers, right? So if you go through, all of the superheroes in the DC universe, he doesn't really have any superpowers. So, the pain and suffering and the darkness is really what brings him to be the Dark Knight, right? He became the Dark Knight because of all this dark shit that happened to him in his life. Right. The only thing I got tired of him was him following Rachel around and then, blowing her off, and then he follows her around and blows her off. And I'm like, dude, died already.
We'll get to that. Yeah. All right. You got anything more to say about your introduction to Batman?
No.
Yeah. Same.
Right.
That's we were
beat that horse.
Trust me, we were in that. We were many years on from the Burton films, and we were many years on from the others. And after the Clooney debacles. It was just like, please, like Tom said, please don't screw this up again. It's too much.
But yes, Christopher Nolan took it. I think we all agreed did a great job. I was talking to Seth about this before we started recording, that in this trilogy that he did, it was the first taste of the MCU in that, even though it's Marvel and DC, in that historically, all these comic book movies that came out, they would kill the villain at the end of the movie. Look at Jack Nicholson's Joker, and I hated that. And Batman Begins is the first one where Scarecrow doesn't die. And at the very beginning of this movie, hey, there's Scarecrow. He's still out there selling his hallucinogens to the mob and shit,
Yeah.
So he was the first to kind of do that. And I think that, we'll get to that later when we get to it. I don't want to spill all of it. So let's get into it. Starting out, the movie fires up with the bank scene. You immediately see Joker. You don't know he's the Joker, but he's standing on the corner. He's holding the mask.
It's Joker.
Yeah. Truck pulls up. He puts the mask on and he gets in. So what we've got here.
Wait, you're skipping through way too much of that, because you don't know it's Joker, because, in kind of wrapping back, the whole point of this conversation here is to talk about the project management and just the timing in every the precision of that first heist, right? The fact that he's a bad guy and he kills people aside, right?
Like any good project manager.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, he's got everything. He's got everything dialed in. He's got all the tools he needs. Everybody's got their task assigned to them, up to and including eliminating the guy who just completed the task.
Exactly.
You know?
You've got a band of 6 guys robbing the bank. They don't know that Joker's there. You get a lot of good, fun comic book dialogue here where they're, you know, like, hey, you know, did you hear the boss, that Joker? He's kind of crazy, don't you think? You know what I mean? You can tell it's all done in post, and it's very, you know, animated series kind of callback, you know?
Sure, buses driving through banks and then pulling into traffic with other buses. It's like, yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, they start offing each other one at a time, and then they get to that end scene with the bus, and you can see him kind of moving, you know, because he knows that bus is coming through, you know.
Yeah, I mean, all the timing and everything that took to lay out, right? And think about this too, because nobody else knew the other task of the other member of the team, complete contrary to teamwork, right? They just knew their piece, and that's all he told them. You have this piece, you have this piece, you have this piece.
Right. They clearly didn't even know each other.
Right, exactly.
There's a lesson there for project managers. Keep it compartmentalized. Keep it compartmentalized. This is your job. Do your job.
So
agree or disagree? I don't.
Says the musician. No.
I don't even have a team. Set my own goals.
I don't even have a team.
There's a couple of ways to look at the bank heist and Joker's approach to it. I want to start, like I said, I created business plans for everybody. So with the Joker, his mission statement is essentially to destabilize Gotham City by exposing the fragility of its moral compass, undermining its institutions, and proving that anyone, even the most virtuous, can be corrupted. And so his goals here are to create chaos to destroy Gotham's hope and trust in its leaders being Batman, Harvey Dent, the Gotham City Police. And then the secondary goal would be to prove his philosophical theory that humans are inherently corruptible, right? So his first step, he needs cash, you know? We got to have some money to fund this whole thing.
Not just money, but a particular group of people's money.
The mob's money. It has to be the mob's money. Yeah, that's key. And so we get our first taste of the Joker using game theory in his plan. Basically, every single tenet of his plan, every single tier he uses game theory. I guess the Nolan brothers like took a college course on game theory and were like, hey, we got to make a Batman movie about game theory.
I think this is the thing pirates did back in the day where they would bribe each other to take each other out so that one guy got the loot at the end.
Yeah,
I swear.
It goes back to pirates.
I think it goes back to the first time somebody had more rocks than somebody else.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
just saying.
More than likely.
Which, so, I mean, once again, goes
each
back
of
to
the robbers take out one after the other to serve their own interests, with the understanding that they get a bigger cut. All they got to do is take out this other guy, and then they come to realize, oh fuck, somebody's gonna take me out too. You know, the Joker absolutely correctly predicts the outcome of this round of game theory. It's perfectly executed. Couple of takeaways. By understanding how individuals prioritize self-interest over collaboration, you can predict behaviors in high-stakes situations. And that's where Joker excels, right? His manipulation shows how exploiting mistrust within his team can fracture alliances, though in real-world leadership, that's super unethical. You know?
Yeah.
Very, very common.
Yeah. I think
generally
as
with
we
less
go,
severe consequences.
Yeah, I think as we go, we might be able to draw a lot of parallels to modern day corporate interests and such. So they robbed the bank.
Yes.
Then you got the parking garage scene, right? Where we have the Scarecrow selling drugs to I guess you see on the news that everybody escaped from Arkham Asylum. They kind of skipped over that in the movie itself. I guess it's like a blink and you miss it situation where all of the inmates have been set free from Arkham Asylum for some reason. I guess
that was
the Joker
actually
did
the
that.
Joker too. Yeah.
Yeah, but Christopher Nolan does that in his movies sometimes, where he's like, "You're just gonna have to keep up with me here. The Joker set free all the inmates."
Well, I mean, they all do that.
There's always a bit of plausible deniability involved in anybody who dresses up like a bat and flies around fighting crime. So, you gotta skip. There's certain things you can just that happened.
Clearly it happened.
So this little drug deal's interrupted, and Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow is like, "Nah, that's not Batman. I know Batman." You know, this is a year after the events of the first movie. Scarecrow isn't buying it, but it sets up that we have these copycat, Batman in hockey pants.
Which was Tom's original goal out of high school? Was
to be Batman in hockey pants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd use what you got available. So, and there was definitely hockey pants around. Anyway.
So Batman rains on that parade. And that's when Scarecrow's like, okay, that's Batman. I did love that. I really did love that scene. Next day,
Batman wouldn't have gotten away with that with Tommy Shelby, just to throw that out there. Shelby would have had him. But
how do you feel about Batman not being good with dogs?
How do I feel about it?
I don't know that he wasn't good with them.
It was just exposition. It was just exposition, kind of, for him to set up.
He keeps dog treats in his utility belt. Come on.
He had to upgrade his armor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he gets attacked by dogs again.
That's just lazy
later
writing
in the movie.
It's just lazy.
They kind of
writing.
set that up. Anyway,
maybe it's in the comics.
Yeah, next morning, Bruce Wayne has to patch himself up. He clocks the Harvey Dent stuff going on computer screens. So we get to the court scene, and Harvey Dent is trying, I don't know, some mobster in court who pulls a gun on him. You get some crazy reaction acting, and he disarms the guy that's sitting there on the witness stand. And you have to just put it together yourself that Maggie Gyllenhaal is now Rachel. What was the actress that played her in the first movie? Katie Holmes.
Yep. Tom Cruise is old.
Tom Cruise is one of his exes.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that why she couldn't do it?
Because that's one of Tom Cruise's exes. We just jumped right all over that.
Well, going on what you're about to say, I assume that is the reason why she didn't do the next one, because
Tom said no.
And Scientology was like
the Church of Scientology was like, no more Batman for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated Maggie Gyllenhaal's Rachel in this. I think this is her worst work. This is Maggie Gyllenhaal's worst work.
Because I liked her better than Holmes. I really did. Katie Holmes was just
you're wrong.
Frail and unbelievable. Like, what?
I don't want to give any spoilers away, but
I thought she did pretty good. I thought the scene where Joker comes in and rains on the parade at that party. Excuse me.
Yeah.
She looks like she's scared out of her fucking mind. A lot of that was improv, or not improv, but
real.
Heath Ledger went real fucking hard on that scene.
Well, and she'd never seen the story behind that is she had never seen Ledger in his makeup before that scene.
Correct.
So her reaction to him was genuine, and then he went all in on top of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't like her acting in this movie. I thought it wasn't her best work, but Harvey Dent's disarming of the guy on the witness stand sure does make her wet. Man, she likes that. Yeah.
And
that's
Tom was worried about
swearing.
To
the comics.
So
it got her attention. It got her attention. It did.
So they go out to dinner. Bruce Wayne's there, and they're like, "Fuck off, we're having dinner." And he's like, "Oh no, we're gonna pull some tables together." And he's like, "Nah, they don't allow that here. It took forever for me to get a reservation." He's like, "No, I own the place." So Bruce Wayne doesn't take a hint. Guy's like, "Fuck off, I'm trying to have a nice dinner." And he's like, "Oh, no, we're combining tables."
No, I'm a pompous asshole. You don't get it.
Yeah,
I did like Christian Bale's.
I'm so rich I can be an asshole someday.
Yeah. I loved Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne and his pompous ass, and obliviousness that he plays. Like when he hits when he gets in between the truck that's trying to T-bone the guy and saves the guy who's trying to out him as Batman. He's like, "I think I should go to the hospital." You don't watch the news much, do you? It's pretty good.
That was easy there. The arrogance piece, he was just that was the American Psycho. right? That whole arrogant, rich, pompous thing was literally just a throwback to that piece for him.
Yeah, just Christian Bale being himself, huh?
With less murderous.
Less murderous.
I mean,
Yeah,
some
less
actors, that's their whole shtick. Look at Christopher Walken. He just plays himself in every single movie he's ever been in. You know, who's the guy that's Lucius Fox in this?
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman just plays himself in everything. You know.
Not for nothing, the guy, I cannot remember his name, Harvey Dent. Yeah, Thank You for Smoking. He's that same character in all of those as well.
Yeah, yeah. You know, he is a good one though, man. I don't think that guy gets enough roles. He's a great actor. What is that guy's name?
And I had to look it up, but I didn't think we were taking movie notes, so I was working on leadership stuff.
Hey, me and you both, brother. Don't worry about it.
But he is. He does. I mean, he's definitely better than Tommy Lee Jones. Saying.
I like Tommy. Hey, I was
shots fired.
I was a fan of Kilmer and Jim Carrey, and I loved it. I loved that particular Batman movie. I'm not ashamed to say it.
That's why we don't ask you questions, Seth. Opinions like that.
My reaction.
I agree. This was a much better Harvey Dent than the Tommy Lee Jones version.
That's it.
Aaron Eckhart. Yeah.
Yes.
So the next scene that we have is the boardroom scene where
he shows him a magic trick.
Well, you've got the Asian guy on the Zoom meeting, right, with the really shitty old television, and he's like, all of your money isn't safe, all your profits are as collectively, all of our profits are getting reduced from this entire year that we've had of Batman fixing the fucked up police force who is super reactive instead of being proactive. You know, in this year since the previous movie, Batman has basically taught the police force to be proactive instead of reactive. And they've done a much better job of dealing with Gotham City's crime. And Gotham City has a huge organized crime problem. That's the whole point of the first movie. So you get all the mob bosses together. The Asian guy's like, I've taken all the money. I'm going to keep it here because this is the only place it's safe. Joker shows up and he's like, you're wrong. Batman doesn't have jurisdictions. You know, he will go and he will get that money. And that's exactly what ends up happening. And so we have this crazy negotiation where Joker's essentially like, you have a Batman problem, and I'm going to take care of your Batman problem. Well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just do it yourself? Because if you're good at something, you never do it for free. I love that
quote down. I wrote that quote down.
That is a great quote, man. That is a great quote. I feel like I've heard you say that about playing music.
Maybe. I probably should have if I didn't. And sometimes I don't take my own advice. But it definitely there's a correlation there with just don't give your shit away. You know, that's it literally, if you have a skill, then you have an obligation to your family to in some ways monetize that skill to, take care of business, take care of yourself.
I like that. An obligation to your family and yourself. Yeah, man, absolutely. So, but you're only 25
Irish
minutes.
Whiskey and peanut butter. I don't need much. I'm just saying, But when it comes to my family, I got to put a little something here and there. So
yeah. But we're 25 minutes into this movie. There hadn't been a whole lot actually happen, but at this point, you get your first look at Heath Ledger's chops and how he's going to portray this Joker in this movie. And it's just, it's such a good scene, man. It is, you can see why people just love this movie and why it's number 3 on IMDb, even today, all these years later.
I kept wanting to give him chapstick.
Yeah. But we know why he did that. The prosthetics kept trying to come off, so he'd lick them to keep them from falling off and just turned it into a tick that the character has.
Which is awesome.
And it works so well. So yeah, he's like, you think you can just walk in here and take half of our money? Well, yeah. And he's not wrong, man. These guys, their profits are dwindling. This is on my notes on his game theory, isn't it?
This is pretty good leadership skills. I mean, you walk into a room and you immediately command the room by putting a pencil in someone's eyeball.
Yeah, and his acting, he shoves this pencil into this guy's face and then perfectly plays the, oh, where did it go? You know?
And he did not like being called crazy.
No.
Because he
No.
probably worked real fucking hard on all these plans of his.
Yeah, crazy and insane are two different things. Like it's always grouped together. But I will say that, you know, in today's modern society boardroom, if you go in and you do something, obviously not putting a pencil up through someone's forehead, but if you go in there and you say something really sparklingly intelligent or come up with a real plan as opposed to a bunch of BS platitudes like, you know, circling back and let's round up the wagons and all these other things, and you actually come with facts and something, you know, people take you a little bit more seriously and will pay attention to what you have to say, as opposed to somebody, let me check on that and I'll get back to you, right? So
put in the work before you go in the room. Put in the work.
Right. Like I said, he did come to that meeting prepared.
100%. He was prepared. But he positions himself
and a vest full of grenades.
Yeah. And plenty of knives. When he gets arrested, it's just, there's all these knives, knife after knife after knife. It's so great.
I know scene in Thunderdome.
He in this meeting, he positions himself as a necessary evil for the mob, and he leverages their desperation to gain influence. And at the end of the day, partnership should be built on mutual goals. He's manipulative in this, and it's good cinema. But as far as the leadership and project management part of it, you can't build strong partnerships on that kind of manipulation. Of course, this isn't really meant to be a strong partnership. He's, at the end of the day, gonna fuck everybody. You know?
I mean, I feel like he's a pretty good project manager, but a dog shit leader.
Well, I mean,
well, I've had bosses that led by intimidation and not through action, you know, or through understanding and motivation. The motivation was the intimidation, the fear of, you know, I will fire you or whip your ass, but I will not lead you. It was like, you know,
well, in the construction world, that used to be the norm. That is how everybody led. That was just the way that jobs work. You know,
kitchens as well. And Tom and I both experienced it in the care and feeding of our good Uncle Sam. You know, that was all part and parcel of of definitely Tom and I's, you know, youth coming up is what Tom, the Village Inn. Those cooks would shove a dishwasher into the side of a stove, like just so you did what they asked, because you didn't want to get sent home with a fresh scar. You know, that was the thing. And so, you know, so we worked for the Joker, apparently.
Well, no. So what
he was a raging narcissist.
Yeah, what it kind of speaks to you, though, Mark, if you think about it, is the way the Joker did it. You know, again, you correlate that over to modern business, is he spoke to his audience, right? If you're in a room full of thugs, you can't go in there and go, okay, guys, let's play Kumbaya and hold hands, right? Same way as if you're talking to a room full of construction workers, you got to speak that language or you get zero respect. But you can't use the same language in that conference room that you will when you go back to the office and you're sitting with, you know, the shirts and ties, right? He spoke to his audience. His audience knows violence. His audience knows and respects violence and power. And so that's what he put forth, right?
He came into the room prepared.
Mm-hmm. He read the room.
Yeah, those are good insights. Okay.
Who the hell said that? Oh.
So then we have some stuff with Batman and Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Dent on the roof where they kind of powwow. I forget what they talked about. Scene with Bruce Wayne in the Bahamas or something. And then we get the scene where the Joker has himself delivered to the mob boss as if he was dead, and then pops up and gives him the whole, do you want to know how I got these scars?
I love that scene. Do you know when he pops up, he actually sticks knives in those guys next to him and lifts himself up with those knives?
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they did downplay a lot of the like the guy in the, that's one thing about this movie. Like, there was a lot of death and killing, but there wasn't a lot of blood. Like, and he did, when he dispatched the guy with the pencil, there should have been oceans, right?
No,
same thing there.
They wanted to keep it PG-13 for good measure. And so you have two tasks there. Keep the cussing to a minimum and keep the blood and gore to a minimum. And they wanted to do that scene with Two-Face. When he's in that hospital scene, we're jumping ahead here, but you know, he turns to Commissioner Gordon initially, just kind of real quick, and they immediately cut away, where you like almost get to see it and they immediately cut away.
Yeah.
And then there's a little more discussion, and then he turns hard and you see Two-Face in full face for the first time. And I think that in going all this time without very much blood and gore and violence, it made that scene that much more impactful when it happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Again,
you're skipping over the best part of that entire conversation that exists to this day on T-shirts, mirrors, bumper stickers, everywhere. I think that was the first time he dropped the "Why so serious" line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Last week we did Austin Powers. We talked about how quotable that movie was even today, and this is another one where the movie's just so quotable. There's so many quotes that are just part of the ethos today. That that "Why so serious?" You say it, and everybody knows exactly where that's from. Let's talk a little bit about Batman's plan, because now we're at the point where Lucius Fox goes to Hong Kong, does his little reconnaissance mission with the cell phone, and they've put together this plan to extradite this guy from Hong Kong.
That was the conversation on the rooftop.
Right, yeah. So going to my Batman strategic business plan, for his mission statement, I've got to protect Gotham City, dismantle organized crime, and inspire hope through justice, even if it requires sacrifice. His leadership style is a servant leadership style. He leads by serving his community, and then uses collaborative authority. So he partners with Lieutenant Gordon, he partners with Harvey Dent, and leverages their strengths to help in his mission. You can contrast that with the Joker, who thrives on chaos. Batman balances control with adaptability, while Joker just surfs the chaos. So you have this huge contrast between these two characters and their leadership styles.
Mark, when you're saying leadership, agree or disagree? In looking back at this, I actually think for the majority of this movie, aside from catching the Asian gentleman and taking him out of Japan, Batman was completely reactive to everything, whereas the Joker was forward thinking for everything until that one point at the end, what we'll get to. But prior to that, he was completely reactive to everything. The Joker was always 2 to 3 steps ahead of him.
Which is why he had to go to Hong Kong.
No, you're 100% right. That is the biggest flaw in the Gotham City Police Department, is that they can't be proactive with the Joker. They're constantly reactive, and he plays on that reactive nature like a fiddle. Batman, on the other hand, has the ability to work outside the law. So he has instances like where he goes to Hong Kong to extradite this guy from Hong Kong, where he can be a little more proactive. But the Joker's also counting on that.
Oh, exactly. He's, again, forward thinking. He's all over it. He's planning for X, Y, Z, A, and B contingencies, right? And he's the master of pivoting when things, okay, so, Batman goes and grabs the guy from big, huge plane, balloon, pirates, the whole thing. Gets him back. The Joker's like, well, that's okay. I'll just sew a cell phone into a guy, blow it up. I'll get captured intentionally so that I can get to this guy and kill him. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm going to put myself at risk. Yeah.
Talk about the Gotham PD being reactive. They just
telling you,
arrest this crazy guy, and lock him up without realizing that he's got something sewed into his stomach.
He's
and it wasn't like it was a professional job. Oh, yeah.
And a horrible leader.
Yeah. So let's talk about Harvey Dent's business plan. His mission statement is eradicate organized crime in Gotham through legal integrity, partnerships, and public trust. His leadership style, he's got that white knight approach. He leverages his charisma, his legal authority to unite the stakeholders, Batman, Gordon, the citizens, to try to take down the mob and take down all the crooks and everything. Of course, that changes once he becomes Two-Face. Then he gets more autocratic, and he abandons collaboration altogether, and leaves everything up to chance. It's all up to a coin flip. He doesn't care anymore. He's emotionally volatile, and he's making reckless decisions in crisis scenarios. But
in many ways, Harvey Dent is also really, he's just a city bureaucrat when you get down to it. He's absolutely, he's all about stopping crime by catching it in red tape. You know what I mean? And even his nickname when he was coming up was Two-Face. That was kind of a gag in there. You know, that it was like, what was your name, Harvey? What was your name? You know, so and Dora pointed that out to me. She said, you know, you got to compare him to basically like a city inspector that I know all you guys have dealt with inspectors, and it's like, I want this project to go through. Therefore, yeah, sure, that looks good. I don't care about this project. It's in my neighborhood, you know, and the not in my backyard inspectors. And it's like, it's totally just a two-faced subjective process. And I think his approach to crime fighting was very similar in that you just wrap it up, you know, and eventually it slows down. So,
yeah.
Well, the other piece of that is that coin that you're talking about was actually very symbolic, because prior to the accident, prior to the explosion, there was double-sided, so he never was putting anything to change.
Yeah, he never had to risk anything. He was always going to win.
The one side of the coin, like his face gets scratched, and now there is a heads or a tails, right? So now it is complete chaos. So the Joker somewhat enrolled him into his process, again, pivoting. Oh, okay, well, we've got this. And he went into the guy's room. He had just killed his fiance. Went into his room, completely putting himself at risk, completely throwing himself on
blamed it
fire.
all on the cops and Batman, and I mean, he straight up says later in the movie that Harvey is his ace in the hole.
Yeah,
but we're jumping ahead, and it's my fault for bringing up Harvey's transformation to Two-Face. But going back to
spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie yet, it's 20 years old.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it in order of how the plot goes. Anyway, initially, his goal is to bankrupt the mob by seizing funds and leveraging the guy's testimony that, you know, they extradite from Hong Kong. His tactics are, you know, public trials, bureaucracy. You know, he can kind of use Batman, and that's certainly helpful for a bureaucrat in this scenario, you know. But he's very much like a startup trying to disrupt an industry through innovation and partnerships. You know what I mean? But trying to work within the legal framework. It's really good stuff from a leadership point of view initially, until his emotions get the better of him later. So at this point in the plot, where are we at? They've got the guy extradited. There's another court scene. What goes on in this court scene?
Oh, that was where he arrested everyone in the mob.
Yeah. 549 arrests.
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote that number down. I know
no,
you did.
It just
There's
stuck
no
in my
way
head.
You got that. There's no way you had 549 from memory.
It is. Well, we watched it with the closed caption on so I could read it. It was right there.
This scene was scary. I love how they put that scene in the trailer too, by the way. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, so, and then they meet with the mayor. What is it, that scene?
So,
that footage, the courtroom
I gotta
footage.
talk about the mayor. Talk about the mayor. The mayor was in, he was in The Tick, the TV series. He was in The Tick. He was Batman in The Tick.
Batman, yes. Yes.
Oh.
He was also on General Hospital, so my mom told me.
That dude is a good actor. He's in a lot of things. He's just kind of one of those,
just
like,
blew my mind.
He's always one of them supporting actors that's just kind of, you know, a side character. He's never like the leading character or anything, but he's great in all of the stuff that he's in. He's a good character actor. Strong on the mascara, but he is a handsome man.
He's a beautiful man.
Yes. So yeah, they meet with the mayor, and then there's what is this scene with he's got the fake Batman tied up, and he's are you Batman? Tell me. You know, that's pretty good stuff.
Oh no, wait! When he's meeting with the mayor, isn't that when that's when the fake Batman hangs outside of the
right? Well, they're watching
window.
they're watching the video of the Joker with the fake Batman, and then they wrap it up. Bam! He hangs.
Which is the only jump scare in the whole movie.
I was just gonna say that kind of scared the shit out of me the first time I saw it. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. Well, you hit the window like a pigeon.
I'm glad they put a jump scare in there. The Michael Keaton Batman that Tim Burton did. That was really kind of they portrayed Batman as kind of a horror movie monster in the beginning, and when they first introduced Batman. I like that one about the 88 movie. 88?
89.
89.
Yeah. So
my T-shirt doesn't fit anymore.
I have some more notes about going from Harvey Dent's leadership style back to Batman's leadership style. They're very similar in that they try to build alliances, and they've got that same goal to dismantle the organized crime. Big difference is Bruce Wayne's a billionaire, and so he uses these tech-driven solutions, which really give him the upper hand. He makes some poor ethical decisions that we're going to get to when they come up. At this point in the plot, we're at the ballroom scene that we talked about a little previously. This scene mirrors pays tribute to the Jack Nicholson movie. There was a ballroom scene where the Joker crashes the ballroom in that movie as well, right?
Yep,
I didn't make this up, did I?
Vicky Vale. That's where he realizes that, hey, wait a minute, there's all this crime. Then there's Kim Basinger.
Yeah, and I loved the oh, thank God he's got a safe room scene.
Oh God, the two yuppies over there making out or whatever they were. He's got a safe room, and then he just takes the shotgun apart, chokes the guy out, takes the shotgun apart, and closes him in there. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
No, this was the one out by the pool. There was like a couple out by the pool trying to hide, and he like opens a wall and tucks in there. Like, oh, thank God he's got a safe room, and the wall closes. You're like, oh, I guess we're not invited to the safe room. What happens from there? I'm not very good at this. I'm new to this.
Your favorite actress?
Well, Maggie,
how come you can't say actress anymore?
I don't know.
I mean,
I think Harvey Weinstein made up that word.
He made up a lot of words we can't bring up on this particular episode, Mark.
That's another podcast.
They're trying to play up this tension between, this love triangle that I'm not invested in at all, because that's not the same character from the last movie, in my opinion. I'm not buying it, man. I just my head has a hard time being emotionally invested in Maggie Gyllenhaal's version of Rachel. To the point where when they offer, I'm like, oh, thank God. And that's not what the intent was.
That's pretty dark.
I guess we know who the Dark Knight is in this picture.
Yeah, really. Caples.
But Joker crashes the ball. Batman comes and has a little fight, and they arrest him. Right? Don't they arrest him? The Joker.
Have we ever seen this movie?
No. He leaves because he throws your favorite actor out the window, and then Batman dives out to save her.
Yes.
He lands on the roof, the car, which again, plausible suspension of disbelief. I was going to say plausible deniability. That's a whole nother thing.
Right. And then we get to the scene where they find the evidence that the Joker's going for assassinating the mayor.
Well, it's the Joker card that falls out of the envelope. They found traces of everybody's DNA on it, right? Or that's what led him to the mall. The mayor.
The mayor, the chief of police, the
commissioner,
judge, the appeals chief commissioner, and the judge.
Yes. So then this guy goes. So then this guy goes to Lucius Fox and tells him, "I figured out who Batman is, because I see where the money's going, and I know that we don't actually have a government contract for all these cell phones." And Lucius Fox doesn't even know about this government contract about cell phones, because he asks Bruce Wayne about it later.
With 200 words, Lucius says, "Dude, fuck you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of a missed opportunity to not break down Lucius Fox's leadership. I might have to do like a side bonus episode later where I dive into that. There was just so much content with just I probably shouldn't have even gone so deep into Harvey Dent, because this is going to be such a long recording.
Yeah.
There's
Although
a
Morgan
ton of
Freeman
content.
still does have one of the best voices in Hollywood. I mean, come on. It's Morgan Freeman.
Sure, yeah.
I love him as Lucius. You joked about him playing himself every time he plays anything, but I like him as Lucius Fox.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we have the funeral, or the assassination attempt. Bruce Wayne discovers that all the police have been tied up. Great callback to normal Batman where they just are in their underwear tied up. That's comic book Batman. I love it. And you get to see Heath Ledger with all the makeup off, sort of. I mean, he's got his prosthetics, but no Joker makeup. That was pretty cool. Now help me understand something. Why, after the dust clears with this assassination attempt, that's where they arrest. No, that's not where they arrest Joker. Okay, so after the dust clears with the assassination attempt, the Lieutenant Gordon plays dead, and they fake his death to the point where they go spill the beans to his family. Oh, your husband and your father's dead. Batman shows up and everything. What the fuck? Why did we need that? I don't understand how that moves the plot along.
So no, because actually it's perfect because there's two times in this entire movie. This is one of them where the Joker's plans fall through, right? And it's because of something that he didn't catch, he didn't predict, he didn't think about. Gordon was dead, so his plan, he thought Gordon was dead, his plan went out. That was how they ended up catching him. That was how they ended up nailing him, because Gordon was the one driving the truck with Dent in it, right? A little later on. They didn't know Jim was still alive.
But why does Gordon have to drive the truck? I don't understand. It doesn't seem like a necessary part of the plot.
Well, it's Gary Oldman first off.
And
so, yeah.
it's not fair what they did to his family. Like, why couldn't they just go tell his family, it's, we're going to fake my death at this thing. Just, play along.
I think because they didn't know who was compromised. Everybody on the force was dirty.
I'll give you that, but I still go back to why did we have to do this? Why did we have to fake his death in the first place?
Maybe they thought Gordon's wife was compromised.
I don't think Gordon's wife was ever really compromised. But
was
I don't know. That's a good point, because the whole point of it was that something that was anything, and I don't know if maybe that was Nolan's intent, but the whole intent, or the whole piece of it was any time there was something the Joker didn't know, and that was one of the two times he didn't know anything.
Yeah, trying to keep him just
completely in the dark.
Trying to turn the tables on the Joker any way they could. You keep saying Joker's plan. The Joker straight up says he doesn't have a plan, and you look at the way that all this has gone together.
Too many moving parts. There's way too many moving parts to not have any plan.
But maybe the plan is to surf the chaos, and he put together all of these game theory games that he's playing with Gotham City, but just surfing the chaos. And he's a smart guy. He can make predictions as to how he thinks that each of these games are going to play out, but he has to know that there's going to be things that he isn't going to be able to account for,
He banks on the chaos.
He feeds off it, but all right, so you got Rachel and Harvey, both of them are captured. One of them's going to die. You can only save one. They had to have a contingency for either one of those to play out, right? Because then, what's the gain? And then Harvey lives, but he becomes Two-Face. That wasn't on anybody's.
That's another thing that he does, though, that I didn't point out, is that he manipulates the game. None of these when you look at the game theory stuff that he does, and you go back to like the theory, the true version of it, this is always a bastardized version, because the Joker, like with the two different locations, he lies about the addresses. He's like, he's twisting the game, and as a third player, you know what I mean?
Hence the plan. You have to sow that much chaos in that amount of time. You have to have some kind of plan. Yeah. So you had a plan to sow the chaos, then the surfing.
Then manipulate the chaos as most he can,
as needed. We can only be so proactive in our goals and what we're trying to achieve, and at some point you do have to pivot. And that, I think, when we talk about a villain's leadership ability, his ability to pivot into manipulating Harvey Dent into becoming Two-Face, and and like Tom said, by not knowing which one. He could guess that Batman was going to go after Rachel, but he didn't know. So he obviously had a contingency plan for if he actually saved Rachel, or if he thought, no, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, I'll go save Harvey Dent. And he went to the wrong address. He went to the Rachel address. So these the plan is to sow chaos, but always have a backup plan. You know,
Yeah.
and to a
Yeah,
point,
Joker
now,
always
obviously,
has these contingencies, and
he's obviously
that's
waiting the results, but at the same time, he's clearly got a contingency plan, and he's clearly able to pivot. You know, and I think that's a huge thing that, you know, we talk a lot about proactive leadership as opposed to reactive leadership, but you still have to be able to pivot because things do go pear-shaped and sideways regularly.
Yeah, you have to have contingency plans, especially when it comes to member vulnerabilities. The Batman and the police and Harvey Dent could have taken something from the Joker in that and had better contingencies. Like when they lose Harvey Dent and he goes nuts and becomes Two-Face, there's no contingency for that, you know. And then we get into the end of the movie, and let's not jump ahead to that yet. But
Mark,
the Joker.
Mark, here's what I'll tell you as far as that piece of it goes, as far as Joker's plan. You know, the other piece of it, and I'm sure you'll recognize this right away. 2 words: herding cats. Right? That's a lot of project management. We're going to build this building. We're going to build it from this point to this point. Something goes awry. Next thing you know, you're like, all right, well, we can't build it this way. Well, we still got to build the damn building, so we got to go this way. Right? You know, just corral your resources and herd the cats.
Yeah. Embrace the chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we get to the point where the Joker has demanded that Batman turn himself in, and so Harvey Dent claims that he is the Batman. Arrest me. That's a bold move on his behalf, and that's strong leadership. That's you know, where you own your team's mistakes, you know. And Harvey's certainly doing that in that scene. And that's one of the most commendable things that character does in the entire movie.
It's a sacrifice in it, and you put sacrifice in Batman's description.
Yeah, and it's a servant, you know, leadership role where, you know, he's serving the people and he's serving his team by taking the blame for Batman. It's pretty good stuff. Yep. No thoughts on that?
I think he was just trying to do it to make himself, you know, more attractive to Rachel, but whatever. You don't buy the whole Rachel thing anyway, so we know that's going.
I mean, I'm not Batman. I may not be Batman. Katie Holmes. Never seen us in a room together.
He was trying to, that whole love triangle thing between Rachel, Harvey, and Batman. Or now he's just trying to be the other piece of that triangle. So
yeah. So then we have a scene where the Joker blows out a trucker's eardrums with a 12 gauge. You ever had a 12 gauge go off right next to your head, like in that truck where he's in the truck, in the front seat of the truck with the truck driver, and he shoots the guy that walks up to the truck?
I've had 4-inch howitzers shot, you know, from 20 feet behind me, but never a shotgun.
That poor truck driver looks like just an actual truck driver that Joker hired. Gets his eardrums blown out right there in the truck, and then has to go on this high-speed chase with this 18-wheeler. Great scene, man. This is one of the IMAX movies. I think that I read that there was only like 4 IMAX cameras in existence, and they broke one. Filming this movie.
About that. Yeah. Yeah, and that was shot down somewhere in Chicago. That underpass was.
Yeah, and so we get our gratuitous Batmobile scene.
Am I the only one that thinks this Batmobile is gross?
I thought it was a great modern take on the Batmobile, but yeah, it is kind of bastardized. It's not kitschy enough, you know. There's no logo.
It's more realistic. It's more, I'll give you that. It's more realistic to what
I like
the Batman
that about
would
it.
do.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about a motorcycle coming out of the middle of it, that's where I'm like, all right, come on. As somebody who rides a motorcycle, I'm like, hold up, time out. That's not going to work.
But right. Oh, I have thoughts. It was a good, yeah. It was a good way to have the Batmobile and the Bat Cycle in the same movie, you know, by combining that one chase. Because man, could you imagine we had 2 separate chase scenes?
It is.
My problem with this motorcycle, besides its like wheels that go sideways at one point, and how easily it separates from the car. It shouldn't separate from the car that easily. That's a liability. There's no fenders. And if you've ever ridden on just even a bicycle with no fenders, much less a motorcycle,
pelted.
Oh man. And then he's got his cape. And if we know anything from watching The Incredibles, it's that capes and spinning wheels.
No hey, and keep in mind, Catwoman, Anne Hathaway, rode that quite well with no cape. but she was also in a skin tight suit.
Also, that wide of a wheel would be heavy, wouldn't handle for shit.
But these wheels turn in all directions. It's impossibly weird. But at this point, we get into our next piece of game theory, the chicken fight.
What movie?
Where Joker has nothing to lose and doesn't move.
At the end of the chase scene.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
We get a bit of a showdown. I think it's like, well, with the exception of the ballroom scene, the Joker and Batman's first real, violent showdown. And it's a game. It starts with a game of chicken. Batman's on the Bat Pod, the motorcycle. He's riding directly at the Joker. And Joker stands his ground. The whole idea of chicken is, you're both coming at each other. If you swerve, if you're the one that swerves, you cede dominance to the other person, and you're subservient to them. You know what I mean? You're it's who's the bigger man? Who's the bigger? Yeah. And if neither swerves, both lose. So somebody has to swerve, or there's no winner, And Batman swerves at the last minute, crashes, and
he doesn't kill.
He preserves his moral integrity in that he sticks to his rule of not killing. He didn't kill the Joker. This isn't a chicken fight where both die. The Batman would have been fine and Joker would have died, but the Batman would have, his morals would have been challenged at that point.
Well, and conversely, the Joker's standing there going, "Come on, hit me." He's willing to give it up all for his goal, right? Because then he corrupts Batman ultimately. So he's willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to make that goal.
If Batman kills Joker in that moment, he wins by proving his point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he wins. He wins either way, because he wins anyways and gains a psychological advantage. A little psychological leverage over Batman, and winning this little stupid game of chicken. Fucking good writing.
Except for the heroine of the movie.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think she has any bad lines or anything. I just didn't think she was a very good actress in this movie. I don't think she played the part well. And
her brother is, now Dalton.
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
So now we find out Commissioner Gordon's still alive, and they capture the Joker and take him to jail. And then we get into more just iconic cinematography. The whole scene. You flash to jail and they're pulling all these knives out of his jacket and laying them out on the table, and then you see him sitting behind the bars. And then everybody was walking in, and they're all kind of,
Oh yeah, he's just sitting there like this the whole time. He's just sitting there, kind of just.
Yeah, the mayor shows up. That's when he tells Lieutenant Gordon he's commissioner now. Tells him to go home and get some sleep. So he goes home and tells his family, "Oh, by the way, I'm not really dead," and then immediately leaves and goes back to work. But you have the Joker just sitting in this cell. And when Gordon comes back from telling his family he's not actually dead, and that he actually helped the Batman this time, he comes back and they have the good cop, bad cop scene.
Yeah, that's when Batman tunes him up pretty good. But again, in the back of the Joker's mind, down in holding was what we talked about earlier. He already had yet another plan going. He had another, and the other question I always had about this movie is, where does he find these people? You know how hard it is to find decent help nowadays, right? Find people that really want to work, much less get a cell phone sewn into their stomach.
I asked the guy the other day, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." Like, okay.
That's got to be a bonus play. You think he 1099s this guy, or is he pay him? Is he corporate?
That's absolutely contract labor. There's no way that guy's got health insurance.
He's an anarchist, man.
Yeah,
he's an anarchist.
There's no health benefits there. There's no nothing. Anyway, so his plan's already.
I'm telling you, he's a good project manager.
He is 100%. Keeps his overhead low too. I mean, that was like a Nokia cell phone. Even for back when this movie was made, it was still a shit cell phone. So I mean, his overhead's way low. He's keeping his costs down. Where his head's at.
And dealing with 100% turnover rate, because everybody that he hires, he immediately lays off.
I'm pretty sure he's not paying retirement to anybody.
Nobody.
Like nobody is getting their 401k
No,
vested
no.
at all.
No, they all get offed right after their first job.
In the middle of their first job.
If there was a detractor to the Joker's management and project management style, I would say that
just
he is
one
a
detractor?
he's a horrible delegator. He doesn't delegate at all.
No, if you want something done right, you got to do it right.
Did he put all of the crates of jet fuel or whatever it is on the ships for the explosives all by himself? Surely he delegated that out.
He's got employees,
he's got crew.
Yeah, he didn't rig the hospital.
But when it comes to the very important tasks, if you want something done right.
Yeah.
I don't know. He delegated to a whole bunch of dudes at the beginning of the movie that didn't know each other.
Got them to kill each other. Yeah,
Talk about riding the chaos. The police and Batman's goal is to get all of the crooks off the street, and the Joker's doing that for him, one project at a time.
Let him keep going. Sooner or later, he'll be out of people.
I mean, he's outsourcing all of his training. It's just
but he's also He's also trying to build the workforce of tomorrow by driving the everyday citizens of Gotham City batshit crazy. You know what I mean?
That's better than looking for him on Indeed, I guess.
Riding the chaos.
I don't feel like this came up on any of my LinkedIn notifications.
Nah, I'm pretty sure.
But this scene in with the interrogation with both Batman and Joker just sitting there in fluorescent lighting, just full fluorescent lighting, having a conversation at a table. It's just good, man.
It was
good stuff.
That was
it's good art direction.
That was actually when he almost breaks Batman too. He gets close because the Batman is just tuning him up, right? And he's just pushing the buttons, and then a huge plot flaw when the guy in the cell phone in the stomach does blow up. How does the Joker magically appear in a cop car driving down the road after all that? Like,
I guess he took cover, man. He was able to get out. But we're
well,
into our
people
next.
Broke out of Arkham without any kind of explanation. So what the hell? Just run down to the motor pool and take something that's running.
He is a criminal genius. But we're into our next tier of his plan and another piece of game theory, and we're talking about the kidnapping of Harvey Dent and Rachel Dawes and forcing ethical decisions again. We talked about he has the two addresses. He gives them to Batman, but he flips them. He manipulates the game, and that he gives them the addresses in reverse order. And he's pushing Batman into making an impossible ethical choice, exposing those moral limitations that Batman has to have because he's only human, right? He uses calculated risks
to do that, or because he knew that Batman had to make a decision in that case, and either way, whether it was going to be the wrong decision, right?
I think
Batman's mind.
Todd talked about it earlier, and he made it a question or made it. I think that he knew he was going to go for Rachel. Knew.
So going back to my mission statement for the Joker, to destabilize Gotham City by exposing the fragility of its moral compass, undermining its institutions, and proving that anyone, even the most virtuous, can be corrupted. So by putting him in this impossible ethical, almost like the trolley, scenario where, he has to make a choice. Either way, somebody dies. He has to pick who's going to die and who he's going to save. He's chipping away at his moral armor. It's not a full tear down because at the end of the day, he was put in this position, but, it's a situation where, Batman's decision has very real implications for the rest of the story and people's lives or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Speechless.
Or did he want him to just feel bad?
You gonna pout about it now? Is that what you're gonna do?
Bruce Wayne is nothing if not pouty.
Once he puts the cowl on, he's real pouty. Yeah, talks in a different voice.
So I have this.
To the cowl.
This week's book of the week is The Art of War, and I have this quote from The Art of War: "All warfare is based on deception."
It's a great book. There's so many. That's more quotable than any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I thought it was an appropriate book for this movie because, in a lot of ways, the Joker's it's like he's certainly read The Art of War.
I'd be interested. It's been a while since I read that, but I'd be interested to see if there was any yeah, obviously you can't quote it directly. No, they couldn't quote it directly from the movie, but if there's any lines that the Joker says that are very similar, because he does mention things about knowing your enemy and things along those lines, which is right along with the art of war, right?
Yeah. So Rachel Dawes dies, and I am indifferent because we're meant
moving on.
We're meant to be like, oh no, they built up this, they were going to get married, and now that can't happen. And
She wrote Bruce a Dear John letter and everything.
And half this dude's face catches on fire. And it's good stuff. And then the Joker pops up in a police car, and he's not even in the front of the police car; he's in the back of the police car.
Again, he's really good. He's good at recruiting. Yeah. Not so much at retention, but he's really good at recruiting.
Then we have the scene with Gordon and Dent in the hospital, and it's where we first, see that full face of Two-Face. And how do you feel about how the CGI on that has aged?
I think it stands up. I thought it was great.
Agreed.
I mean, and keep in mind they tried this before, and I love Tommy Lee Jones, one of the worst villains ever. And that whole Two-Face thing he had going on, it looked like something you bought down at Toys R Us, the rubber mask.
Yeah.
Right. It was certainly like some painting on plastic.
Seth, Toys R Us is a toy store that used to exist years ago. Sorry, I forgot the age gap here. I'm using. There's a place called Radio Shack. Anyway, but yeah, no, I love the CGI. I think it held up really well.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell it's CGI, but at this point,
but I don't
you'd
feel
be
like
dumb
it's
to not be like, man, that's real.
Well, no,
Yeah,
but he
even
also
so
didn't.
much when he takes the shot at the bar and wipes the whiskey that's dripped down his face. I thought it was well done.
Yeah. Holds up.
Yeah,
held up.
I agree. I certainly think it holds up. And then we have the guy goes on television, and the Joker says, "Look, we're gonna play a little more game theory, and y'all are either gonna kill this guy. You got an hour, or I'm gonna blow up a hospital." And all chaos ensues. They start evacuating hospitals. There's this whole chase scene, Bruce Wayne leveraging technology to figure out which police have families in the hospitals and such. It's pretty good stuff. I did want to ping that, Bruce Wayne using technology. He's really the only one that does a good job of doing that in this movie. But, he's a billionaire.
Yeah. Well, and the other piece of that too, if you look at the corruption piece of it, Mark, having run projects, I'm sure there's always going to be a couple of people that, if you look at the corrupt police, compare that to a crew, there's going to be those one or two guys that they're like, we want this job to go on forever. So I don't want to say anybody's trying to sabotage it, but there's people who don't carry their weight
take a different
sometimes.
tool home with them in their lunchbox every day.
Yeah, things happen, right? But it's kind of reflective of it, and I mean, his plans, the Joker's plans, that one about the hospital, that one's the one that, like, you couldn't foresee that. I don't know how you pivot to that and go, oh, this guy's going to come out of nowhere. He didn't even know he existed until he went on that TV show, right? And then, well, I'm going to plant explosives in enough to blow up a massive hospital building.
Yeah, a little bit of suspension of disbelief there, but I think at the same time, at this point in the movie, the Joker's having to pivot again because certain things are happening that he, while he didn't plan for, they play into his goals, his ultimate goals. But at the same time, Batman and Gotham PD have caught up to the thing that if the Joker says, and this is something I wrote down, as a project manager, if he says he's going to do something, he fucking does it. You know what I mean? It's like, if Batman doesn't turn himself in, we're going to start killing people. And then people die. And then he says, if this guy's not dead in an hour, I'm going to start blowing up hospitals. Well, they know he's going to blow up a hospital anyway, regardless of what happens. At this point, they understand that he's going to do the thing that he's threatening to do, which is also plays to a certain amount of leadership skills when you start to understand that when your boss says, I'm going to do this thing, and you're like, sure you are. And then he does it. And you're like, oh, well, I guess this is what we're doing now. So as you see the movie, like we talked about earlier in the film, the Joker is always 3 steps ahead of everyone, including the world's greatest detective. He's just that far ahead. And now it's like they're closing the gap. Not necessarily in a way that they're going to catch him, but they're certainly closing the gap, and he's going to do the thing. You know what I mean?
But Harvey Dent survived. Well, I'm sure it was expected that he would survive, but getting half of his face burnt up like this and ending up in this hospital for Joker to then show up at the hospital, take advantage of the disruption from whatever part of the hospital plan was original. That the Harvey Dent situation at this point is a curveball where he seizes an opportunity. He had something already planned for the hospital. Certainly he had the explosives planted, but then he shows up and has this conversation with Harvey Dent, who is now Two-Face, and that couldn't have been planned for, and has this discussion about, the only thing that's fair is the chaos, and convinces
100%, but that's him pivoting and rolling with the punches and figuring out, all right, what do I need to do to make this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
surfing the chaos and having contingencies.
And kind of jumping on what you said, Todd, about him doing what he said. The other thing about the Joker that's consistent, he does it the same way. Remember when he burned the big pile of the mob's money that he had? What did he say? He goes, I'm a simple guy. Gas, gunpowder, and that's all you need to instill a little chaos. Does it then, burns all the money. Does it in the hospital. It's always the same MO as far as what he does. He just blows things up and burns them.
Yeah. In the middle of this game theory of the hospital explosion game, we have another little piece of game theory with the coin toss, where the Joker's got Harvey Dent's gun up to his forehead, or his own gun in Harvey Dent's hands up to his forehead, and Harvey flips the coin. And he said, now we're talking.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Like I said, these guys had to have just taken a game theory seminar and was like, oh yeah, we're going to use all of this, And then the scene with the actual explosion of the hospital, great cinematography and great story behind it. So most directors in a situation where they're going to actually blow up a building would set up cameras everywhere and get all of these different shots. And when the explosion happens, you'd see all these cutaways and see it from all these different angles. These guys actually blew up this hospital and did it in one take from only one camera view. And when he first pulls the trigger and the explosions don't happen like they're supposed to, that whole pause and kind of jiggle the thing and then get it to finish, that was all improvised. The explosion was supposed to keep going and finish and be this grand thing. And Heath Ledger just stayed in character, improvised. When the explosion picks back up, all of a sudden he kind of jumps and then jumps in the school bus. That's genuine surprise, And they pull off a very expensive scene.
You're not kidding. Think about it if Ledger would have just jumped out of character at that point and goes, hey, I thought it was supposed to blow up, and then cut, and then the thing blows up. Like, shit, we got to find another hospital.
We would have had a CGI explosion, yeah.
Yeah, more than likely. It would have really taken away from it. There's a reason this is one of the top three? Yeah.
Yeah, number 3.
DB's list, yeah.
All right, so where are we at?
No, the hospital blows up. He gets in the bus, drives away. Harvey's hunting down, trying to find out who gave up Rachel, the dirty cops.
Joker tells everybody that they're gonna have to get off Staten Island or some crazy shit. Lucius Fox.
That comes after. So at that point, I'm trying to, because it's the next big thing, right? That was the one big thing. That was when Bateman, not Patrick Bateman. That was the Psycho. That's when Batman, or Bruce Wayne, drives his Lamborghini in front of and saves the other guy who was going to try to rat him out. Right?
Oh, that was back during the hospital thing. Yeah. So at this point in the plot, we're at the super surveillance thing. What Lucius Fox discovers Bruce Wayne's, array of espionage, where he's turned everybody's cell phones into sonar devices for this mass surveillance system
that he feels very uncomfortable about.
Just like our government.
And we know that Lucius Fox knows who Bruce Wayne and Batman are, and Bruce knows it, but he still uses the voice. He still has to do that. He has to do the lip pucker and the Lucius, I need you to use this array to mass surveil all of Gotham City. You
I
know,
think
when
it's the
Batman
cowl
didn't.
pushes his lips together.
No,
So,
Yeah, I think Trump is trying to do a Batman. You know, Trump's mannerisms where he does his lips. He saw this movie and was like, that Christian Bale, the way he purses his lips and he growls with a little growl. You have to talk with people with the growl. That's the way the Batman does it. He's a billionaire. I'm a billionaire. He's my people. We hang out at the same clubs. He's actually a member of my golf course.
You sound like
it kind of does that. Thank you. Now, and if you remember,
but
Batman
in that Trump,
Begins, now Batman Begins, there's a piece. There's again one of those little throwaway facts, like all the prisoners have escaped from Arkham, right? There's a little throwaway piece that when he first puts on, when Lucius designs the bat suit originally for him, it mentions something about a voice masking, something or other that distorts his voice. It's just another one of those little throwaway one-liners. This handles everything.
Yeah, it's
lazy writing, whatever it is, but it's in there so that
it's
when he does
Christopher Nolan and his, keep up guys kind of writing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
so I want to do this deep dive into the mass surveillance system. I wrote this whole 3 pages worth of notes. So Batman uses that sonar technology that Lucius Fox had created and used earlier in the movie to create this array where he turns every citizen of Gotham City into a mass surveillance system. He justifies the system as a necessary tool to stop an imminent terrorist threat to Joker. He controls it. He limits access to himself and Lucius as a safeguard against misuse, and destroys it after they're done. There's some parallels here to the post 9/11 world that this movie came out in. After 9/11, governments worldwide started doing these expanded surveillance methods that a lot of people have issues with. I personally have issues with it. They justified it through fear. Both Batman and the U.S. government and other governments worldwide argue that mass surveillance is necessary to prevent catastrophic events. And so you have this ethical trade-off, all of our privacy rights are sacrificed for security. And that's the justification that that public safety outweighs the privacy violations. And the centralized power parallel, where just Batman and Lucius Fox have access to this. Well, just the federal government has access to all of our phone calls. What are y'all's thoughts? Is it acceptable to violate privacy for security?
That's a deep one for a conversation about the Dark Knight, Mark. But
well,
yeah,
now,
I mean,
all
listen,
these years later, in 2025, we have wiretaps in our homes. We have Alexa, or we have our smartphones. Apple's listening to us at all times. Apple's, positions themselves as, they won't let the FBI unlock phones and stuff. They won't unlock phones for the police force and stuff. But they will spy on us and use it to build these profiles on us so that they know what kind of ads to send us and stuff. But they won't.
And here's the thing, but we walk into that one voluntarily. You know what I mean? That one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Safety and security. I know that if you were to ask sample group of 500 people, do you guys think that we should get rid of TSA? Are you okay with just getting on the plane like we used to? Those 500 people, I bet you the majority of them would be like, get rid of that. We don't care, And I think that's a shift today with society, and we're going a little deeper than Batman here, but I think there's a societal shift where, and you see it through social media, through a little bit more, the more information we're getting that they were trying to cram down our throats for a while. Now they're like, wait a minute, now they have too much information because they're starting to see through the veil, right? Yeah. So I believe that the majority of people would really give up security, right, if they could get their lives back. Just my belief. I may be completely off base. Maybe there's more sheep than there are lions out there, but I would like to believe that each day a new lion's born and going, hey, you know what, I kind of done with this.
Yeah.
I say no way, man.
No
it's
way,
easy
man,
for me. Don't sacrifice security or privacy rather for security. No way.
Yeah, and I think that's where the majority of people are. It was proven, with the latest election. It was proven, the people are tired of being handheld and spoon-fed. I think COVID, at least for our country, I think COVID was a huge eye opener for people, especially now that the truth's coming to light about all this. That they were able to do that to us, and people went, whoa, wait a minute. They were able to lock us in our houses for a year, like almost. And guess what? It's still there, and blah blah blah. So it's a lot deeper than that. But back to the movie, Lucius Fox actually said it. No one person should have this much power.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he offered his resignation.
Yeah. And that job was at least a 6-figure gig, right? That was a huge, high-paying gig.
Yeah, he had bennies.
The musician still harping on the bennies, says the solo
He
musician.
is one of those moral compasses for Bruce Wayne, though. That's kind of his.
Him and Alfred, which we haven't really talked about Alfred. That's a whole nother road.
I know. Getting into Lucius Fox and Alfred is a rabbit hole that I don't know if we have time for.
Yeah, I think that is a deep rabbit hole.
There's another rabbit hole I want to kind of jump down, though. So the Joker's anarchistic approach. This movie, again, super popular. People love this movie. It kind of made the zeitgeist. It made the anarchism acceptable. It kind of ushered in the Trump era, and you had these people who kind of idolized the Joker. You had that one kid that went into the movie theater during the movie and opened up on people in Colorado. I feel like, and I'm certainly getting into the weeds, and I don't blame you guys if you don't want to take this journey with me, but I feel like movies like this, people who claim that they affect society have some very valid points. You know what I mean? I don't know if the Joker's responsible for Trump. But if you were to lay out that argument for me, I would listen to you. You know what I mean?
That's a deep. You know what? I don't want. You're right. I can't go down that one with you because I don't feel like that. Hold on. I gotta look something up because just bringing that up. I don't know. I was gonna
look up
it out because Fight Club.
Look up your okay.
Fight Club was another one. Same thing. Anarchists, we're going to destroy society.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guarantee that was in the top 10 of IMDb's list. If I looked, everybody loved that movie.
What year was Fight Club?
99.
Was it really?
1999. I felt like it was later than that, but
9 years
what
before
you're talking
this one,
about, there's a definite parallel there, right? So Fight Club was even more of an anarchist because it recruited regular people and it was just regular dudes. Actually, it was one bipolar, schizophrenic, whatever his condition was, dude, who brought regular people into it. So that's more believable. So if you're trying to go down the road where the Joker brought Trump into it, Trump was still,
but nobody has Fight Club tattoos. How many people have you seen with Joker tattoos?
Hold on. What I mean? Nobody has Fight Club tattoos. No.
Whoa.
Yeah, but the Joker's more, it's more than just that piece of it, right? A lot of people have Joker tattoos, but because of it's Heath Ledger, or it's because of their Batman fans, or it's because of, the Joker's around the comic book mystique of it, right? From the Adam West days to the DC, that Detective Comics, that was Batman, right? So,
But to kind of, I'm just going to jump ahead on that because it plays to what Mark just said about, do you think this gave rise to an anarchistic movement, or do you think it contributed to the overarching message? And the thing that the Joker absolutely did not plan on was that both the incarcerated and the free people chose to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You see
We're
what
almost
I mean?
there. I appreciate you trying to move the plot along.
Kind of
no, and that I see
bit.
what Todd's doing. That does kind of bring the whole thing right, kind of full circle, right? There's, at the end of it,
It does bring it full circle. But before we get into that, I just want to point out that the next thing in the plot is Harvey Dent starts to go on his vengeance run, where he's going and playing the coin flip game with all these people. The scene with Falcone in the back of the car, where Falcone gets a heads, but his driver gets tails. That's great. And he buckles up and shoots the driver. Really good scene.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eric Roberts, king of the B movies, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, that guy.
feel like I've seen him on,
They
like,
had a lot
Matlock
of
and
really
stuff.
good. Even at the very beginning of the movie, they had the actor who was the mob banker. Is another character actor that's in like everything. That's just always a good
Yes.
supporting actor.
Oh, yeah. The guy with the double barrel shotgun who comes out in the
Yeah,
back. What the hell? Yeah.
I think he's in Ally McBeal or something.
Just shoots at people, by the way.
Ally McBeal. That's right. Ally McBeal was a show that was on. Never mind. Very skinny
On
woman
Fox.
was in it. Yeah, it was a very skinny woman. Yeah.
But yeah, now we're at the fairy dilemma, and it's our last of our game theory, morality games, and it's the big loss for the Joker. Even though he does have a contingency, he was certainly counting on the people on the ships, doing the wrong thing, and he didn't count on Bevo from Friday actually turning his life around in prison.
Right.
That was
Another
Debo.
just
Yes,
gr-
it was.
Oh, Devo. Oh yeah, is it Devo or Bevo? Bevo's the cow
No,
in
it's
Austin.
Debo. Devo was
Devo.
the band in the early '80s with flower pot hats. They had a song called "Whip It."
And Bevo's the Longhorn. Gotcha.
Yes.
But his point here, his objective is to prove that ordinary citizens will abandon morality when faced with a survival threat. And this is that classic prisoner's dilemma, where the idea is that, well, and it's kind of bastardized, and he certainly is, trying to cheat the system. But, the original prisoner's dilemma idea is that you've got two prisoners, and you arrest them both, and you separate them, and they can't talk. And you tell prisoner A, no matter what, both you and your buddy are going to go to jail for a year. If you snitch out your buddy, then you'll go free, and your buddy will get 5 years, and then the other way around also. And then if you both snitch each other out, you both get 6 years or something. I don't know, but that's it. The theory in its purest, and they kind of really put a twist on it that's fun with the fairy. It's different in that these guys aren't like bandits that worked together and try to snitch each other out. They're trying to kill each other. In the normal prisoner's dilemma, everybody survives, and one just goes free and the other one goes to jail. This one, the stakes are much higher. But the Joker has this natural ability to create these scenarios that force people into these ethical dilemmas. And this was a great one.
No, that's good project management. It's not a natural ability. He learned that. It's a skill. It's honed.
Yeah. Is he using Scrum or Agile? I don't know.
Quick, interesting sidebar. So on that, in my project management career, one of my largest accounts was the Staten Island Ferry when I was in New York City.
Oh yeah.
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 Saturday Night Live guy owns that now.
They bought the Kennedy. Pete Davidson. They bought the JFK when it was decommissioned. Anyway,
where are we at? So we're kind of in the middle of the prisoner's dilemma.
You're at the apex. You're at the apex. They've, so the other piece to that technology. So the prisoners are on one boat, the people are on the other ferry, and then the supposed police and doctors that are kidnapped are in the building that Batman tracks them down to using the sonar technology.
And he's using the sonar trying to get through there and trying to keep the
and
police. Now he's kicking
dog.
police's asses, which is one of the things they accuse him of,
yeah.
Because the police he's afraid they're going to go in there and just start taking out the people in clowns masks that are actually the hostages.
Yes.
And Joker's at the top of the tower with the dogs.
Yeah, the reappearance of the dogs, yes.
Yeah.
And so this is what I was talking about, this is the second time him, with the prisoners not doing what they thought they would do, and neither one blowing each other up. When his plan failed, that's when he failed, and this was the second time he was caught.
Yeah.
He didn't have any eventuality, the contingency plan that he had was for him to blow it up. That didn't work. They were able to disable it. So his first plan didn't go, second plan didn't go, contingency didn't go. He gets caught. So his final plan fails, and that's how he gets caught. The one of two times Batman was ahead of him in all of his plots and plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he uses that technology.
You knew he was going to do it, and they're like, he's going to do it anyway. So Batman was able to get, that one step ahead, of course, by using questionable ethics in technology, he was able to get ahead of the problem, you know, including the switcheroo on the hostages and the thugs, you know, and all that was the result of an ethical dilemma with, using what we were talking about, the sonar in the cell phones, and then of course, like we were saying, the Joker was planning on either the prisoners or the common people just abandoning all their own morality and going ahead and blowing one or the other up. Worst case scenario, he's got to blow both of them up, which we know at this point he's going to blow
but Batman
something
gets
up.
there just in time to stop that from happening. We have this amazing scene where he's hung up by the grappling hook, but they film it so that he's right side up, but he's sitting there hanging right side up, which I thought was a pretty clever way to do that. And then we have that heartbreaking line where he says, "I feel like we're destined to do this together forever." And you know that, nope, that's not going to happen, because Heath Ledger died. Me and Seth were talking before the show that it would have been better for the movie, but only if you had known that you weren't going to have Heath Ledger for the third movie. If they just gone ahead and killed the Joker and kind of harkened back to, the Jack Nicholson movie, which is what you felt like going. They kind of pay tribute to it, where you think he's going to die just like the Jack Nicholson Joker, but then he doesn't.
However, Christopher Nolan didn't want the Joker to win, and if the Joker was killed off, that would have meant the Joker won by breaking Batman's morality.
I'll drop the mic.
Getting him to cross that line.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
I don't.
But
if you ever bought a mic, Seth, you don't.
I feel like it would have been more satisfying for audiences, knowing that we lost, Heath Ledger, to have gone ahead and killed Heath Ledger's Joker and let Harvey Dent's Two-Face survive. Yeah, they kill off Two-Face, and that's just super unfortunate, because if we had Harvey Dent and Two-Face for that third movie, that would have been such a better movie.
But here's the problem. All right, and I'll go ahead, because Heath Ledger, that was a terrible loss, and you wish it wouldn't have happened. But Hollywood being as greedy and as sequel hungry as they are, we made millions off this, let's make millions off another one. They would have just, if they would have sequeled it, I feel like they would have dropped the ball so bad. DC is known for dropping the ball on sequels, right?
Yeah.
Trilogies, different versions. Look at Aquaman 2. Look at Wonder Woman 1984. Good God. Look at Suicide Squad. All of them, the sequels are just trash.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's funny
I'm
because
not sure Heath Ledger could have pulled that off again. He was a method actor.
He would have been drained. Yeah, that was.
I don't think he physically would have been able to do that again. And so I think it would have been chopped up. But you think it was weird having a different Rachel?
Yeah,
put a different Heath Ledger version of Joker in there and see how that goes.
Yeah.
I don't feel like he was the type of actor who would have cashed in on franchise films. You know what I mean? I just don't feel like that was his stock in trade. So, the loss of him being, huge in the industry and to the art form. I don't think,
they offered this to Matt Damon. Can you imagine a world where Matt Damon was Joker? And then in that same world, Ben Affleck becomes Batman later.
The irony there.
I mean, I'd watch that once. I'm gonna make a short of that. I feel like the AI could generate that.
No, they made it, but it was called Dogma.
I love that movie.
Oh, you could do a whole Kevin Smith thing. Forget about it. I did love the guy. I've been, stood in front of the Quick Stop myself when I was in Jersey when I was at the ferry account. But anyway,
but yeah, I think that was the best way for that movie to end, because that way the Joker did not win. They had to keep him alive. He had to go to Arkham.
So then we have the final kind of climax that I think wasn't a very good ending to the movie, where they go back and they catch Harvey Dent with Gordon's family at this construction site or whatever it is, and there's this showdown where he's threatening to kill his family. Man, Gordon's family just get the
they had a rough day.
Yeah, it's a bad day for them, man. You gotta feel bad for that guy.
A lot of therapy.
But at this point, the Joker had that line that Harvey was his ace in the hole, And he's not wrong. Batman kind of crushes that whole thing. There's a scene that I have an issue with where they fall off the side of the building, him and Harvey dies. He's been using the fucking grappling hook the entire movie. Where's his grappling hook in that fall? You know what I mean?
Left it on the other building. The only had
I'm
so
not
many.
buying that.
Joker with it.
Yeah,
I'm not buying that. He had another one in the backup Batmobile. The Bat
with the dog treats he doesn't have, Mark. We covered this.
Oh,
the
and
Lamborghini.
The Batmobile blew
I don't
up,
know.
and the one thing about that motorcycle, it did not have saddlebags, so there was no place to keep any extra shit.
No
on
extra.
He wrecked the Lamborghini. I'm gonna assume he used the Batcopter, the Bat helicopter, and we just Nolan cut
that up
scene.
for parts to make the tumbler.
Gotcha.
Well, you got the Bat Wing too, so don't forget about the Bat Wing.
That's what he
Still
did.
in
He
development.
flew the
Call
Batwing.
Lucius, he'll tell you.
It's still in development.
No, he flew it in the.
He flew it in the
Get
first
my
one.
Batman.
the next movie. It's the next movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's how he takes the bomb out. Okay.
But then,
spoiler alert.
Then we have this whole thing where they say, okay, we can't let Gotham know that Harvey Dent went crazy and killed all these people. We have to blame it all on Batman. And Harvey Dent goes down as the White Knight that everybody knew him as. I have a problem with this ending. I don't, why? Why did you have to do that? It makes no sense.
Because it makes perfect sense, actually. The whole movie is about people who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goal. The Joker was willing to die to make Batman run him over and be bad. Batman, to his business plan, what's his business plan you wrote for him, Mark? Self-sacrifice. He's a servant leader. He's willing to fall on the sword, whatever it takes to achieve his goal, right? Nothing bigger than falling on the sword than Batman's gone. He's on the lam.
He's taking the fall.
Hiding all this shit in one of my 18 mansions, right?
And that's great. Batman. And it drives home that that sacrifice is not failure. At the end of the day, they're just using strategic reinvestment. Sometimes a good board leader has to step down. It's the right thing for the company, and this is one of those situations. What I'm getting at is, why is that the only choice? Why couldn't you have just okay, well, Batman has to take the blame and go on the lam because we have to blame him for all of the mob deaths. No, we don't. Why can't we blame the Joker for all the mob deaths and say that Harvey Dent died in that hospital explosion?
Because Harvey had his gun pointed at the kid, and he was there. They were surrounded by cops, so there's no way to say Harvey died in this thing. Harvey was there.
That's the Gordon family. You can swear them to secrecy. That goes back to why couldn't they know that Gordon wasn't really dead? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like we said, the Gordon family kind of got hosed in this one.
Yeah, they did.
Let's put it this way: I don't think Nolan will be making anything on the Hallmark Channel anytime soon.
Yeah. It's a satisfying ending in that it drives home that sacrifice that a good leader has to make sometimes. It's just it's not satisfying in that they sell it as this is our only choice, and it certainly is not. There's all kinds of options here. You know what I mean?
In the heat of the moment, though, I could see the decision being made. It works out. Because here's the other thing to consider. There's a lot of factors there. Batman doesn't want to be Batman anymore. If you remember, even Alfred had said to him at one time in that movie, there's going to be a time when Batman isn't needed anymore, right? And that's what Wayne was trying to get to, so that he could get rid of Batman and be with Rachel, even to Mark's dismay. He was going to be with Rachel. Now Rachel's dead, so he still hasn't had time to mourn that loss, right? So he wants to go off, be even more dark and brooding than he already is, and just go away. So it's a victory for him because he sacrifices himself. He gets to be Bruce Wayne, leave Batman behind, and Harvey Dent still becomes stays the White Knight, I should say, that they already tried to portray him as.
Yeah, even though he does not deserve to be. And, that's a cultural thing where we idolize politicians. And at the end of the day, Harvey Dent let his emotions get the best of him and made some terrible decisions. And
but that was out of the public eye, so it made sense to keep his reputation, as spotless.
But the lesson there is that his failure to adapt to the new, to this, big emotional change in his life became his and Gotham's downfall. And, the Hard Knock University is all about mistakes are your tuition, and Harvey Dent never owned his mistakes. He got out easy when he died in that fall. The Joker, the lesson there project managers have to anticipate risks and prepare contingency plans and avoid being blindsided
They needed a
by
plan D.
unexpected. Yeah. And that's Joker's strong suit.
See, I think the lesson there for the Joker is that if he'd had loyal employees that he wasn't trying to have off each other, then somebody might have stepped up. But this, his 100% turnover rate is what eventually bit him in the ass. If you really think about it that way.
He didn't have enough hands left over in that tower to
Right.
stop Batman from getting from the top up to the top.
What I'm saying.
And then you've got Batman. He's got that servant leadership approach, and he sacrifices his reputation for the greater good. I've got another Sun Tzu quote here: "The general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace is the jewel of the kingdom." And that really does a great job of encapsulating Batman's decision to prioritize Gotham's future stability over his own personal legacy. And the big hard knock university takeaway on that is that effective leaders take ownership for their mistakes, not only their mistakes, but their team's mistakes. And even when it comes, at a personal cost.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
Later, and everybody there anybody who's ever been in any position of leadership knows that, first of all, I can't believe that the Joker at that point would find anybody that would work for him. You would think it would get around and, Henchman's Monthly or something. That,
This
hey,
guy's
this
talk.
guy
It's like-
whacks everybody.
Yeah. They're like
know,
line cooks. They all know each other.
No, apparently they don't. They didn't. It wasn't until the first heist where they're like, "Oh man, this Joker guy, he's crazy. Have you heard about him?"
There's obviously not a henchman section on the Glassdoor app so that they can report to the bosses. And not that anybody have a chance to report, but anyway, all good leaders will do that. They will step up. They will, all the way up to CEOs that have stepped down, and less and less of that is happening in big business, which is unfortunate because there's, you see all these talks lately of all these layoffs, and now we're cutting this, we're cutting that, we're cutting this, and we're cutting that, but yet you never once saw a CEO say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to, it used to be, 10 years ago, the big thing was a CEO would step in and say, my salary is going to be $1 because I want my people to make the money. I want to do that, But in local leadership and management positions, especially in the construction industry, which has gone crazy over the past 10 years, it happens every day. And it's a great thing to see when it does.
Seth, you got any closing thoughts?
Well, sticking with the heavy theme of duality in the movie, I think that Joker is a great project manager and a terrible leader. And Batman is probably a great leader and a terrible project manager.
Well, but he delegates
Struggles
out
with
to
delegation.
Lucius Fox and Gordon.
He relies on those guys, but he struggles with delegation.
Does he?
Yeah, I think
Not
Batman
really.
struggles.
Look at he did put together, now granted different directorial thing, but it's kind of along the same lines of the comic books and everything. He did put together the Justice League.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. I was looking down the barrel of the wrong cannon.
I'm gonna say that while Batman certainly takes all of the harder jobs for himself, he delegates out things to people where that's their strong suit. What's his butler's name? Alfred. Takes on a lot of menial tasks for him.
That's
Gordon
in
takes
his
on tasks
job title.
where
He's a butler.
Sure.
Yeah,
everybody's got a janitor at the warehouse. You know what I mean? But of all of them, Batman certainly got the best delegation skills. The Joker, on the other hand, I think he certainly takes a lot of the heavy lifting himself and probably doesn't do as much delegating because he doesn't have anybody that he can depend on. Yeah. Two-Face, we don't really get into that part of Two-Face's leadership. We don't get to see how he works in his office. The only time they really touched
on his leadership was when he was dealing with the mayor.
Yep.
Right? And that was
when he was still DA. He hadn't become Two-Face yet.
It was kind of trepidatious at best, right, as far as the leadership subservient role goes.
Well, you guys got any other anything else you want to talk about before we call this one?
No,
No,
covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did. We
Let's
definitely.
do this on a scale from 1 to 5. 5 being a good leader. We'll do leadership and project management. We'll rate each of these guys. Scale from 1 to 5 for their leadership. Scale from 1 to 5 on their project management. For Batman, on his project management, I'm gonna give him a 5. I think Batman's project management skills are really good. For his leadership skills, I think I'm also going to give him a 5. I'm going to give Batman 5s across the board for both leadership and project management. For Two-Face, it's hard to rate him on project management, but at the end of the day, he failed in what we're calling his mission statement. And so for that, I'm going to give him a 3 on project management, and I'm going to give him a 3 on leadership also, because he started out strong, but he let his emotions get the best of him and made some horrible decisions. The Joker, on his leadership, I'm going to give him a 0. Well, no, I'm going to give him a 2. I'll give him a 3 because he did put together these big teams, albeit temporary. We'll give him a 3, and then we'll say for his project management, I'm giving the Joker a 5.
Well, I got to disagree on Batman. I think his project management skills is at 2.5 to 3 at best. He was pretty much reactive the entire first 3/4 of the movie until he started to catch on to the.
But what about when he goes to? I mean, he was kind of playing into the Joker's plan.
Don't jump all over my judgment just because it doesn't agree with yours. We all have our opinions here, right? He's campaigning for Batman. Like I said, I even said it at the beginning of the sit down here. I thought he was completely reactive for the majority of it until he got his shit together, so to speak, and started to figure out that, hey, the Joker's not bluffing about anything, right? Then he started to be able to plan a little bit, so he caught up. So it's not a 1 or a 0, it's not a Rotten Tomatoes score, but he's right there in the middle. Leadership, yeah, I would agree with you. He's up there. He's a 4 or 5. Two-Face, he's just middle of the road on both of them because he was kind of in the middle of two very strong, dynamic personalities.
That's his character, and they played it well.
Yeah, he's right there. Now the Joker, conversely, project management and leadership, I'd give him 5s on both because even though he did really lead people for a short amount of time, I mean, you're managing.
You wouldn't ding him for manipulation?
Isn't that what project management is?
He spoke to the room. He spoke to his audience. He knew his audience, and he played his audience the way he's supposed to play his audience. Fear and intimidation in a world of criminals is just everyday life, right? He also managed criminally insane people, right? Complete whack jobs. Got them to follow along with his dogma and follow his chaos theory, if you will. So that takes a lot to do, in my opinion. I mean, these guys weren't motivated by a paycheck. They're crazy,
Yeah.
The one guy that they actually captured, who shot Commissioner Gordon, right? He was completely off the wall. So to be able to manage that as well as put all these plans together, leadership and everything, I would give him solid 5s. Now, again, not saying he's a great person, but for those 2 pieces of work, that would be me. Go ahead, Todd. You're the tiebreaker on all this, just so you know.
No pressure.
No pressure.
To be quite honest, I tend to lean towards Tommy on this one because, I pointed out that, Batman was they didn't get ahead of him until 3/4 of the way through the movie, and that's not proactive. Like Tom said, that's reactive. Project management skills, like I said, middle of the road, kind of 3-ish. Leadership, definitely a 5 because he was able to pull together what resources he could and eventually get ahead of the problem by using, not only just his team, but his resources available. I 100% agree with Tommy on that because the motivation as far as the Joker goes, because the amount of work that he got done in such short periods of time. He was that's a lot of motivation for people who literally think, have you heard about the Joker? That guy's crazy. That kind of thing. So absolutely 5 of 5 on both categories, leadership and project management, because he had contingencies upon contingencies. He followed through on the things that he said he was going to do. He read the room. He utilized, all the things to motivate everyone around him to get to achieve his goals. Ultimately, other people had wanted to thwart his goals and were able to utilize their resources better because there was one that he just didn't have a plan D for the climax of the film. Two-Face is a whole nother story because truly you had two different characters. You had Harvey Dent and you had Two-Face. Even though in the mythology of the comic, Harvey Dent and Two-Face are the same person, we had both of those characters within this subject matter. Harvey Dent was a good project manager in the fact that he got, think about it, by utilizing Batman and Jim Gordon, he was able to lock up, it was quoted in the movie, half of Gotham's criminals in one day. I told you, 549.
Yeah.
In one day, right? That is a stated goal. That is cleaning up Gotham. That is exactly, he did all the things, and he used his police force. He eventually used Batman to help, which he wasn't supposed to, but he did, so he's using conventional and non-conventional resources. As a leader, I think he struggled a little bit because of his, he was in internal affairs. So when he was IAD, that was where his nickname Two-Face came from, because, nobody likes a rat, and internal affairs is always trying to put rats to use. So leadership skills for Harvey Dent, 2, maybe 3. Nobody liked him. The cops didn't really like him. The people liked him because they saw his results. Project management, I give him a 5 because he achieved his stated goals. Now Two-Face, he didn't have a team. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have he had a plan, but he didn't have a team. He had no one to manage. All he had was a coin flip. There was no management there whatsoever. And there was no leader.
Chaos.
He just, okay, this is what we're doing now. Yep. And he didn't ask for help. He got his own gun. He didn't have any thugs. He did his thing. He did it. So, that's my take.
Seth? I'm gonna have to go with Todd. That was pretty damn convincing. Especially I agree with both of them on Batman, and then I was just gonna go with your scores, but he sold me on Two-Face too.
All right. Well, I'll go through this and average them out, and we'll post it where we landed at.
see who I averaged.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and do it for Dr. Evil. All right, guys. I think everybody listening knows where to find me. leadershipknocks.com. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, all that good stuff. Seth can be found on RedTube and 4chan. Where can the people get a hold of you guys?
At my job site. I don't do any of that.
Nice. Todd?
You can find Coming Up Muddy wherever you get your music.
Rock and roll, big.
Todd, is that?
That's not a thing.
Oh.
It is to me.
I appreciate it, but it's not an entity anymore.
It was a thing, and we came up with it, and I produced the first album, Mark.
But yeah, I was fixing to say that album exists, and
yeah, but it's not published. It's just I burned some CDs.
You can't get it off of but you can't even buy it. You don't even have a website to buy music on.
No,
we got to fix that, man.
The thousands of dollars I've spent on a website over the year have not come back to me. So
that's right. You did have it. That's where my buddy Todd was. That's where we
I've had both.
listed the CD.
I've had both. I have my buddy Todd and comingupmuddy.com, and neither of them ever saw any real traffic for whatever reasons. So it wasn't worth I couldn't justify the expense anymore.
Yeah, Mark, years ago, I actually had Cool Edit, and Todd would send me his songs, and I would EQ them, clean them up in the Cool Edit software, burn all the CDs, printed all the labels, mailed them all back to Todd.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it gets expensive, and if you're not making, your money back on it, then you got to pivot. That's part of it,
Yeah.
But you got to market it somehow, man. Maybe we'll talk about that on the next one. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Please don't sign off because we got to make sure that this uploads before we shut down the software. You know what I love about our sponsor this season, SMG Academy? Listen, 20-year veteran Mark Sebi is just spilling the beans for members like me on industry secrets most people guard with their lives. I was just reading this article on the SMG blog spot the other day, 10 ways to leverage podcasting to boost your music career. And it's packed with real usable tactics, from sharing behind the scenes content and promoting your music to monetizing your podcast with platforms like hero.fm, offering exclusive merch and building an email list that actually converts. This stuff is gold. He even breaks down how to use podcast analytics to grow your audience and drive traffic to your tour dates, music drops, or merch store. Look, if you're a musician trying to grow your brand off stage, podcasting is your secret weapon, and SMG Academy is the place to learn how to do it. Visit smgacademy.online and use promo code HKU2025 for 15% off of your enrollment. SMG Academy, where hustle meets harmony.
Flip the pages, take a peek. It's time to dive in every week. Hard Knock, you got brains on fleek. Book of the week.
All right, Hard Knockers, let's talk book of the week. This week, we're cracking open one of the oldest strategy manuals on the planet, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, Mark, I build kitchens, not kingdoms, hang tight. This little 2,500-year-old banger has outlasted empires, and for good reason. Sun Tzu was a Chinese military general and strategist during the Eastern Zhao period. But the art of war, it's not just about swords and shields. It's about strategy, psychology, and leverage. Knowing when to fight, knowing when to retreat, and how to win without lifting a damn finger if you play it smart. Now look, this isn't just a dusty relic from history class. It's a tactical Bible that's still used by military leaders, CEOs, poker champions, and yes, your boy the Joker. Why? Because it teaches you to manage chaos, exploit weakness, and get inside your opponent's head without ever showing your hand. Sun Tzu said, if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Sound familiar? The Joker wasn't strong. He wasn't rich. He wasn't even particularly organized. But what he was strategic. He understood what Sun Tzu wrote centuries ago when he said, all warfare is based on deception. He used chaos as a business model. His greatest weapon wasn't bombs, it was unpredictability. He would force Batman to respond, always reacting, always a step behind. That's pure game theory. Get your opponent so emotionally reactive they abandon logic altogether. Compare that to the Hard Knock School of Project Management, Chapter 8. The best plans will still fall apart. Because whether you're managing a crew or chasing down a masked lunatic, your ability to adapt under pressure is what separates the amateurs from the leaders. Joker thrived when plans failed. Batman gritted through it. And Harvey Dent, he couldn't handle it, so he broke. So here's the real takeaway. If you're leading a team, running a job site, or just trying to survive back-to-back scope changes from a client who thinks HGTV is a blueprint for reality, you need to read this book. The Art of War will teach you how to think strategically, not reactively. It'll teach you how to manage emotion, both yours and the people around you. Because the first person to lose their cool usually loses the negotiation. And it'll teach you how to lead when the stakes are high, resources are thin, and the rules just changed mid-project. Sounds a lot like the world today in early 2025. But let's go deeper. This is where the Art of War meets game theory. Sun Tzu said, appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, and march swiftly to places where you are not expected. That's not just military wisdom, that's strategic misdirection, a core principle of game theory. Game theory is all about anticipating the other player's move, thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, and choosing your action not in a vacuum, but based on how your opponent thinks that you'll act. That's Joker 101. He sets up every trap in the Dark Knight by predicting how the city, the cops, and Batman would respond. He didn't improvise, he gamed the board. Now apply that to construction site or a project team. You might not be facing a clown with a detonator, but let's say you've got vendors ghosting you at the worst time, a client who just saw something cool on Pinterest, or a junior employee who promises big but delivers, well, let's just say not big. If you approach those situations like most people, reaction first, planning later, you lose control. But if you channel your inner Sun Tzu, or hell, your inner Joker, just without the felony charges, you start thinking in layers. What's the next move? What are they expecting me to do? How do I stay calm while everyone else is panicking? This is exactly what I talk about in the Hard Knock School of Project Management, especially in Lesson 7, the best plans will still fall apart. Because leadership isn't about sticking to the plan. It's about knowing what to do when the plan's already on fire and someone's handing you a gas can. That's where strategy meets survival. So yeah, the art of war is about war, but it's also about every negotiation, every estimate, every tight deadline, and every moment where you had to choose. Do I fight? Do I wait? Do I adapt? Or do I set the trap? It's not about being ruthless. It's about being aware, calm, and intentional, especially when you've got limited options and high pressure. So go read it, highlight it, apply it to your next client meeting, your next change order, your next vendor negotiation. Just maybe leave the face paint and explosives at home. This is project management, not cosplay for sociopaths.
Welcome to the knockback your seat. Mark's got the feedback, quick on his feet. Got your hard knock lessons in the mix. Brace yourself, his burns are slick.
Look, I know change can be scary. 1 minute, you're playing freeze tag out there at recess. Next thing you know, you're getting zits, your voice gets low, and every time your art teacher, Miss Scanlon, leans over your desk, you feel all squiggly inside. She was a striking woman. Not classically beautiful, but striking.
All right, Hard Knockers, welcome to this week's Knockback, the segment where I take everything that we just unpacked and flip it back on myself, asking, what can we learn from this, and how have I lived it the hard way? Let's dive into 5 leadership and project management questions, all pulled straight from The Dark Knight, but grounded in the art of war and the Hard Knock School of Project Management. Number 1, what does the Joker's bank heist teach us about task delegation and trust? So in this opening scene, Joker runs a heist so tight, it makes Ocean 11 look like a bake sale. Each person has a job, but they're only told what they need to know. That's compartmentalization. Sun Tzu said, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not will be victorious." Joker knew mistrust would lead to efficiency because betrayal was built into the plan. But let's be real. In the real world, that kind of leadership is toxic as hell. In the Hard Knock School of Project Management, I talk about how too much control kills collaboration. You want clear scopes, not siloed landmines. So the lesson, sometimes tighter delegation helps eliminate distraction. The hashtag Hard Knock lesson, give your team ownership, but don't hand out the whole playbook unless they need to call the next play.
Oh, very well. Like it'll make a difference.
Number 2, how does Batman's trip to Hong Kong reveal the limits of being reactive? So Batman drops into Hong Kong to extract Lau in this wild high-tech side heist. It's proactive on the surface, but as Tom and Todd explained to me in our discussion, it's still a reaction to Joker's pressure. Sun Tzu said victorious warriors win first and then go to war. Defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. So Batman, for most of the movie, is firefighting. In the Hard Knock School of Project Management, I wrote, if you're always in reaction mode, you're managing symptoms, not systems. Batman lacked a contingency framework. Joker was the contingency. The hashtag Hard Knock lesson, if you're always reacting, you're not leading. You're just putting out fires while someone else rewrites the map.
I've put out a few fires, yes.
Number 3, what's the leadership mistake Harvey Dent makes after becoming Two-Face? So Harvey goes from golden boy to chaos coin flipper overnight. He trades principled leadership for emotional reactivity. Sun Tzu warned, if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. And that's exactly what the Joker did. He didn't just kill Rachel, he engineered Harvey's unraveling emotionally, symbolically, and strategically. Dent had no emotional buffer, no contingency for grief. So he abandoned everything that made him a leader and let his trauma run the job. In the Hard Knock School of Project Management, I say it straight. You are not your last project's failure or your last client's temper tantrum. You've got to develop emotional resilience to lead through the storm, not collapse the second your blueprint gets wet. A few years back, I worked with a GC who was Harvey Dent in khakis. Clean cut, sharp, fast talking, could win a bid meeting just by flashing a smile. So he landed this big client on a major renovation job with, high profile stakeholders. Everything was, rolling in his favor. Then his lead sub screwed him. He walked off the job mid-demo, left a mess, and cost him 3 weeks of delays and a boatload of rework. Instead of regrouping, reforecasting, and calling in his backups, dude went full two-face, started flipping decisions on a dime, stopped showing up to check-ins, started blaming the client for unrealistic expectations. He burned bridges with 2 vendors and tried to sue the sub without documenting half the scope changes. He didn't just lose the project, he lost his reputation. Why? Because when the pain hit, he let ego and emotion drive. And if your steering wheel's cracked by bitterness, you're going to crash fast. The hashtag hard knock lesson: never let grief or ego become your project manager. Process the pain, but lead with principle.
Harvey. No.
Number 4, how does the Joker use game theory to break Gotham? So game theory isn't about randomness. It's about predicting behavior under pressure. Joker doesn't just thrive in chaos. He manufactures it. And once he does, he presents rigid choices and watches people unravel. Look at the ferry scene. 2 boats, 2 detonators, 1 moral standoff. That's the prisoner's dilemma dressed in a purple suit. Do nothing and maybe die. Push the button and definitely kill someone else. And either way, the Joker wins because he designed the game, not just the outcome. Sun Tzu said, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. And Joker is that chaos opportunist. He doesn't need power. He just needs people to believe they have it, when every option they're given is one he already preloaded with consequences. In the Hard Knock School of Project Management, I wrote, the best plans will still fall apart, but your thinking shouldn't. Because real leadership isn't about making one plan and hoping it holds. It's about anticipating the collapse, designing contingencies, and controlling the narrative even when you're not in the room. Let me tell you about the time I lost a subcontractor and a client in the same week, thanks to a game I didn't even know I was playing. So we're mid-build on a remodel. Client wanted high-end finishes on a tight budget. You already know how this story ends. And the sub I'd brought in, let's just call him Gary, had been whispering in the client's ear for weeks. Oh, Mark's pricing you up. I can do the same thing cheaper. Classic move. One day, the client calls me up and says, hey, Gary says he can finish this job without all your markups. Why should I keep paying you? Boom. There it is. That's the Joker's game theory. Real world edition. 2 players, 1 detonator, and both think they're in control when the whole thing was rigged by the guy stirring the pot. So what should I have done? Well, I should have seen the signs of the Whisper campaign earlier, and I should have documented everything, and I should have controlled the narrative before someone else did. Because when you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. The hashtag hard knock lesson: real power isn't shouting the loudest. It's shaping the choices, so no matter what move they make, you already know the ending.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Number 5, what separates Batman's leadership from Joker's chaos? So Batman is structured, ethical, and sacrificial. He collaborates with Gordon and Dent, and he adapts. The Joker, well, he just surfs the chaos. But both understand this. Influence is about perception. Sun Tzu said, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. So Batman chooses to look like the villain at the end because protecting the mission mattered more than the credit. In the Hard Knock School of Project Management, I call this strategic humility, when you take the L in public so your team can win in the long game. The hashtag hard knock lesson: a real leader doesn't need the credit, just the outcome.
You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. I thought you'd never ask. Those are good nuts. I know, right? They're the best.
What is happening right now?
That's your knockback, folks. 5 questions, 5 hard-won truths, lessons forged in chaos, tested in leadership, and delivered with just enough scar tissue to prove they work. Because here's the deal. Whether you're managing subcontractors or steering a city through a crime wave, The same rules apply. Know your mission, read the room, lead with clarity, plan for collapse, and never hand your steering wheel to emotion. You need a cape. You don't need a coin. And you sure as hell don't need a pencil and a grenade vest. What you do need, the guts to lead when the plan falls apart, the vision to see order in the wreckage, and the resilience to rise up, dust off, and say, all right, what's next? That's the hard knock way. Your final hashtag hard knock lesson: the world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more project managers who act like leaders when the bat signal's broken.
Batman here.
Batman, great. Look, we have a big issue. Well, the bat signal doesn't work anymore.
How am I supposed to know when a crime is occurring?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
We have to fix this.
I agree. Any ideas?
Try it now.
Well, would you look at that?
It's beautiful. So what was the crime?
What's up?
The one that you needed the bat signal on for in the first place.
Oh, I think a hot dog street vendor was getting robbed, or...
What?
Yep, of course.
All right, Hard Knockers, final thoughts before we holster the bat pod and call this a wrap. Here's what the Dark Knight teaches us beneath the capes, the chaos, and the comic book mythology. Leadership doesn't reveal who you are when everything's going right. It reveals who you are when everything's on fire. The Joker thrived in disorder. Batman fought to restore structure. And Harvey Dent, well, he was the bright, shiny hope until one bad day burned away the surface and left only bitterness behind. Does that sound familiar? Some of y'all listening are in the middle of your own Gotham moment. Your project's off the rails. Your best team member just quit. Your client changed the scope again. And you're wondering if you've got what it takes to finish the job. Well, let me tell you something. You do. Not because of the plan, but because of the discipline, the grit, and the willingness to adapt when the plan fails. Like I said in the Hard Knock School of Project Management, success isn't about having the perfect blueprint. It's about being the kind of leader who can pivot, protect your people, and still deliver when the dust settles. So whether you're a Batman type, quiet, methodical, tech savvy, or you're a Harvey Dent type, idealistic, articulate, full of fight, or God help you, the kind who's dancing with chaos like the Joker, ask yourself this: are you leading with principle or reacting from pain? Because leadership isn't about who follows you. It's about what survives after you lead. So let's go build something that lasts. Let's lead like it matters. Let's win some battles and collect a few scars while we're at it. This has been the Hard Knock University podcast. Thanks for riding with us. And as always, hard knocks, big laughs, epic wins. I'm rooting for you. See you next time.
Oh, missed. Try again. We're gonna make it, crap. We're gonna do it this time. Yes! First try.